Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome everyone. When to call the meeting together, please stand to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks for roll call, please.
Lassiter.
Here.
Nemeton.
Here.
Haslett.
Here.
Moody.
Here.
Meehammer.
Here.
Warren President.
Moving on, we have the consent agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together and be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item or items on the consent agenda be removed and placed as the last item to be revisited to receive full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. Under the agenda, we have A, approved the September 27, 2022 regular meeting minutes as presented, and we have approval to confirm traffic order 140 as presented. Anyone in the audience have a comment? Commissioners, will stay with the consent agenda? I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, moving along, we have citizen comments. That this is the opportunity for anyone in the audience to address the city commission on an item that is not included on the agenda. You'll be limited to 5 minutes. Jessica will be keeping the time. I ask that you move over to the podium and state your name and address prior to speaking. Is there anyone who's interested? Any?
I was curious because it's not on Penny Harvey 437 North Street. It's not on the agenda tonight, but I wonder what's been happening with Adam Marsh. Have they looked at the drawing and come up with a basic footprint? And did you consider moving it in from the point it was out in front of the river mouth closer into the bay? Does anybody know how many slips they think they can add in a current lane?
Penny, I think Mike, I believe we have an item in the city manager report about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So
we'll talk
there-
about
there's
that
a-
in manager.
There's a date for an upcoming meeting.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Moving along.
I don't know if you can hear me. I was trying to raise my hand. I'm on Zoom here.
Okay. Go ahead.
So this is Doug Mack, 1110 Charlevoix. I was curious from our last meeting. I inquired about having a speed sensor on Charlevoix Street as well as on Pleasant Valley. And council had indicated that they were going to look into that and see what was possible, and wondering if anything has come about with that.
Under new business, there's an agenda item down about a digital speed trailer purchase for the police department to put around in a couple of spots, I believe. So we'll be considering that under new business.
Sure. I understood that was a trailer, like a mobile trailer, as opposed to it being a physically installed permanent fixture, similar to what is down by the lake. I'm drawing a blank on the name of the street. I apologize, but on the way toward the beach.
We'll be able to discuss that under that item, if that's okay. Item F, under new business.
Okay, I kind of had a hard time hearing you, but I trust that you understand where I'm going with it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
As a refresher, so we have people who are going to comment from,
If the commission would like to allow that or not.
might be a question that we should probably decide on, so.
Yeah.
You know. So. Anyone else in the audience? Okay. Moving along, we have correspondence, which we have not received any. Has there been anything you want to raise? Okay, moving on, we have the city manager report, Mike.
First, kind of an update with regards to an item that took place at our last city commission meeting. And shortly before that meeting began, Commissioner Nemec told me that he had a like new 2016 Mercury 20 horsepower electric start outboard that he'd be willing to sell to the city instead of the one that was on the agenda. Since this was happening right before the meeting started, I suggested that we proceed with what was on the agenda and talk about what he had after the meeting, so we could see that it might be something we could check into further. That way we would not be confusing the topic at the meeting with incomplete information, and if it didn't check out, we would still potentially have an approved unit that we could move forward with. The city commission did ultimately approve the purchase of a new 15 horsepower Mercury manual start unit for $2,800, a little over $2,800. After that city commission meeting, Tim and I did speak. He told me a little bit more about his outboard that he would sell for $2,000. That it only had used it a couple of times, that we could try it out when we used our pontoon, which the other motor was for the removal of our docks later this fall, the shopper's dock and the fishing pier. He then brought the outboard motor to City Hall later on so the DPW could check it out. I saw it when he brought it in and it looks like it's brand new. Our DPW director, Mike LeMay, and Darcy from our DPW checked out the unit and they think it's a great deal. It's upgraded with more features from the unit that the city commission approved at a lower cost. It is a couple of years old, but it appears to be in very good shape. We have not run it yet, and it would not have a warranty. We have not proceeded with the purchase that was approved by the commission. And assuming that it checks out, continues to check out well, our staff is very comfortable moving forward with this purchase from Commissioner Nemec. It better meets our needs with electric start, more horsepower, and would save us over $800. So unless I'm directed otherwise by the city commission, I plan to proceed with this revised purchase to save money and get a better unit for the community. Contractors began work last Thursday on the new downhill Boyne Forest Trail that's being constructed on our property north of the city. The work in that project is expected to take 2 to 3 weeks. Also last Thursday, members of our fire department traveled down to Grayling to check out our new rescue fire truck that is under construction. The chassis arrived for that truck several months ago, and the box for the equipment cabinets that goes on the back arrived recently. The progress, while much slower than desired, seems to be of very good quality. The contractor hopes to have the truck completed and delivered to us in early December. This Monday, the state sent out their marina rate schedules for next year's boating season. Those rates, as they're proposing, the schedules did not change from this year's rates, which they do on a regular basis. We anticipate bringing a recommendation on our marina rates to the commission at our next meeting. Today, we joined Daifuku and other area leaders in the ribbon cutting of their new facility on M75 South. By creating their new combined regional facility here, we help keep nearly 60 well-paying jobs right here in Boyne City, while bringing another over 50 jobs from communities like Harbor Springs and Pellston to Boyne City and keeping them in northern Michigan. By having the property, utilities, and vision necessary to support such a significant project, they were key to helping Boyne City maintain a balanced local economy. Today, it was a great turnout in the ceremony. They had leaders of their organization from all around the world that came to participate. So it was that was a surprise to me. It was kind of amazing. Members of the corporate team, like I said, we're from around the world. We're here. The facility looks big from the outside, looks even bigger on the inside, and is still mostly empty at this point. It's about 4 football fields inside in size, or over some 8 million cubic square feet. With the opening ceremonies completed, they will be getting to the tasks of more actively moving into all of that new space. As of this afternoon, we have issued 675 ballots for the November 8th election. 110 of which have been returned so far. City Hall will be open for extra hours for the issuing and receipt of absentee ballots on Sunday, November 6th from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Since our first meeting in November falls on election day, the 8th, I'm recommending that we consider changing the meeting date and possibly push back both of our November meetings 1 week to the 15th at 7 p.m. and the 29th at noon. That does also then conflict with opening day, so I might want to take that into consideration. But trying to hold both an election and a city commission meeting on the same day, the 8th, I think would be needlessly difficult for us to try and manage. This room is where everybody votes and staff is going to be charged. So, yes.
We approved the meeting.
Schedule.
The schedule, we changed it with that one.
And then to
Hopefully it was the fall.
the 15th. Yeah, I looked in the schedule downstairs and didn't see it. So if that's the case, then I guess we're covered with regards to that and don't have to relocate it. But if that is assuming that is the case, and I have no reason to doubt that, that does open up for the city commission's consideration with regards to our short-term rental ordinance. Possibly if the city commission chooses to introduce the ordinance today for the first reading, we could have our second reading on November 15th, which is a 7 p.m. meeting, rather than try and push it back to the second meeting in November, which would be a new meeting. Might want to consider changing that date. So that may be something to consider as we get into the short-term rental. But thank you for that clarification, Jessica. Bids for the Line Street sanitary sewer work are due tomorrow. We plan on having a recommendation to the commission to consider at our next meeting. Our city marina closes for the season this coming Saturday, the 15th. Cody from Flotation Docks was in Boyne last Wednesday to inspect our docks. We've been working on that for a couple of months to get him here. Commissioner Glasser made the initial contacts on that and followed up on that. We expect to receive his report on that soon. Ammon Marsh is continuing to work on developing a design for our marina, which should be presented to the city commission at our November 8th meeting. We have not seen any concepts from them at this point. The plan is for it to then, once they have those concepts prepared, the subcommittee that was set up by the city commission would then meet, and then they would then come to the city commission. Probably the first meeting in November, which would then be on the 15th. It has been brought to my attention by several sources that Kirtland Products, the producer of wood pellets here in town, that's located in the business park, has stopped producing pellets and is in the process of selling off their equipment. The building will still be used by Arte Industries, and they've been operating out of there before Kirtland was going, and during the Kirtland operations as well. And they do a lot of work with Lexmark. And that's all I have for the commission at this point. If there's any questions or follow-up you want on any of that, please let me know.
I guess the only one is the clarification. So we've moved the meeting date from the 8th to the 15th.
According to Jessica, that was what the commission originally
I
approved.
got it. That's all I'm asking. So is that the only one we're moving, or now we're going to move the other ones too?
Well, that's an option for the commission to consider, moving it from the 22nd to the 29th, if you'd like to do that as well too. That would keep a pretty well balance of meetings with regards to our schedules. The 22nd is just before the Thanksgiving holiday weekend, and obviously the 29th is right after. I mean, we could have two meetings right in a row. Normally, it's better to have them spaced out every other one. So the commission can consider that.
We'll end up with two meetings right in a row with the end of November and the
No, there's still a month because there's still a week between them. I checked that out. As well. If we leave it where it is now, we'll have 2 weeks between the meeting, the last meeting in November and the first one. There'll be 2 off weeks. The last Tuesday in November and the first Tuesday in December.
It'll be the 13th, all right. Okay. The 20. I don't know, I just want to clarificate what we're doing.
So do we need a motion to?
Yeah, and whether you want to, if we're already set for the 15th, there isn't any action that we need to take on that. We could put this as a normal business item at our meeting in October, and then the commission can give it some further thought rather than trying to do some kind of spur of the moment. But whatever your preference is.
And we only have one meeting scheduled for the 10th.
That is correct.
All right. Anything else? Well, I would just like to echo Mike's comments about that food and the grand opening here. It was impressive. There were people from around the world, and for them to make the investment that they needed in one city was just amazing. And what they're planning to do and where the project goes, it was really something. There's a lot of local contractors who are involved. I met one of Boyne City City graduates who's been engineering with all the lighting project. State catered the lunch, which served a couple hundred people, and it was really a very feel very good that it was a investment for the city of the So with that, we move on to the report of the office of the board and standing committee. We have the Main Street Board draft minutes from September 1. We have the Parks and Recreation draft minutes from September 8th. And we have the Airport Advisory Board draft minutes from September 29th. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. Moving on to the old business, we have item 8, draft of the short-term rental ordinance, first reading. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Obviously, probably then the law. We want to state the reason for the refusing itself, or you are the
Yes, sir. Well, I'm not exactly sure if it is not, I just would rather be safe, sorry. Instead of taking the city over and have potential, litigation around.
Thank you, George. All right. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. As you may recall, back in April, we began, the city commission began a course of setting up 4 separate short-term rental meetings. And it's important to remember, we had several meetings prior to that discussing this. So it's been well vetted over the last couple of years. The goal of the first meeting was to identify what were the impacts and issues of the focus. After reviewing the Boyne City short-term rental data provided by Granicus and receiving public input, the commission determined that 3 major impacts of short-term rental reduces public safety and housing. Over the next 3 special meetings, the city commission determined that a short-term rental ordinance should be developed, review ordinances from neighboring communities, identify the type of ordinance that should be developed, establish standards that should be contained, and develop and review draft ordinances. At each step of the process, public input was encouraged, received, and considered. At the August 16th commission meeting, the city commission reviewed the second draft of short-term rental ordinance and provided additional feedback to staff or additional revision. And it was determined at that time that the latest, with the latest revision draft, was at a point that it could be considered for first reading at the next regular scheduled city commission meeting. The changes that have been made in the draft that was last reviewed on August 16th include some of the following. The definition of basement was changed to count finished basement with egress as 4. The definition of occupant changed from 36 months to 10 years. The change in the license term limits An initial license term would be up to 3 years, and annual renewal to extend the license term for 1 additional year. The way that works, so let's say if this ordinance became effective beginning January, someone could get their license, so it'd be good through all 2023, and then 2024, and then 2025. And then during the renewal period, each year, they could renew that. The renewal period is in November and December. And they could add additional years. So that license would be extended to 2026. So that would put them in that cycle where they could have a 3-year window and update it. Of course, they're not obligated to renew that if you have a 3-year license and let it expire if they want. But that's the option. We removed the application requirement that all advertising websites be provided. Added the application requirements, we require parking schematic be provided to the owner. And added provision reserving the right to change the number of licenses, but not to the detriment of existing license holders. On some of these issues, there may not be unanimous consent by the commission, and then likely any ordinance to be developed that all commissions will agree on. The current draft ordinance was changed as adjustment last meeting, and which has been reviewed by the city attorney. Does appear to meet the needs and stated objectives to address the short-term issues and business, public safety, and housing tax, and fair and the proposed short-term rental ordinance base is being presented to the city commission at this meeting for first reading, and as required by Boyne City Charter, ordinance amendments cannot, or adoptions cannot be adopted until at least 1 month after a meeting is introduced. And the next available city commissioner meets this requirement would be November 15th, as we discussed. So it is the recommendation to review the proposed short-term rental ordinance and schedule a second reading for November 15th. And please, well, it is something I need. So with that, any questions and address.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner President, okay, thank you, Scott. All right, at this time, we will entertain comment from the public. You're limited to 5 minutes. Please, we have the podium. Take the name of the address and we would like to confer.
I can't quite see if anybody's up there. Oh, is there?
You can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, it's really, really hard to hear, just so you guys know. Doug Mack and 1110 Charlevoix. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there because I'm up in the UP right now, but fortunately that means that I have notes this time so I can keep myself out of trouble. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of go through the suggested verbiage here really quick, and I have some questions and I'll just summarize my questions at the end. Number one, in reference to the Good Visitors Guide, what exactly is the intention of the guide? What, if any, limitations will be put in place? Will the city see or use this as an opportunity to pander advertising space? And will it align with our branding and actually serve our guests? I'm unclear on what the purpose behind it is specifically. Second question is in reference to the occupant of individual of 10 years or older. How do you plan on monitoring this? I brought this up at the last meeting, or managing for that matter. As mentioned in the last meeting, this is information we receive. This is not information that we receive from a reservation, nor am I comfortable with being the weirdo that asks for their children over 10. I'm not looking to ask the age of their children. Either they're adults or they're not adults. The platforms themselves allow us to know if they're toddlers or if they're adults, and that's pretty much it. Number 3 is in reference to the single family district. why is, again, same question as last time, why is the city choosing to single out a particular area of the city? And has council legally verified if doing such is in violation of any constitutional rights, perhaps those surrounding capitalism? It strikes me as creating a separation of working middle class and the wealthiest property owners. And while I'm not aligned with any cap, quite frankly, if this is the strong arm position that the city feels it needs to impose, I propose that you do so for the city as a whole. Regarding the renewal period of the licenses, I think that that's pretty cut and dried, but I would recommend or ask that it's for the last quarter of the year, just giving 3 months instead of 2 months. Let's see here. The section 7, and specifically E, respectfully, I find most of this to be overreaching and heavy-handed, almost as if you're making rules for the sake of making rules. I'd be curious to know if there's any one person in the room or on Zoom who does not have their property insured. I don't know if that's anyone. We don't need to, or do we need to venture into becoming an architect to draw schematics of parking, or could it be as simple as saying, keep your cars in the driveway? It doesn't seem to be too complicated. The maximum occupancy in 15.4, again, I find this to be overreaching. Our job as STR owners is to provide a viable and comfortable space for our guests. This could and often does include bunk beds. Bunk beds are available in double size, and while it's not something I would do in my space, put 2 of those in a large room and you can sleep 8 people comfortably. In our case, we have 1 large room with 2 double beds, which of course can sleep 4. So when we also have a large rec room where we can have where we have 2 luxury queen air mattresses, and we therefore allow a total of 12 people. We've slept 12 people adequately and with rave reviews without any issue. So if a home is of sufficient size and restroom facilities are available and all of the typical things are met, I'm not sure why the government feels or the council feels a need to dictate this. And again, a host's biggest concern is always positive reviews. So if the city feels that this is something that they need to control, then I would propose that you do that based on number of beds and how many they can sleep comfortably, not trying to put 3 people in a single bed. There seems to be a grace period missing from the revocation of a license. If somebody is planning on going through proceedings to overturn that, I think that the license should be still available and not be revoked and given to someone else. That appeals process is pretty important. Question 4 is, does an owner have the right to appeal each and every complaint, or are they required to wait until they strike out? What if the first two were inaccurate? If we don't have the ability to appeal them, that can cause an issue. In reference to the appeals process, there's no mention in any of the definitions of how many people would be party to the appeals board, how they will be selected, and whether or not they have any bias on STRs. Seems like an opportunity for things to go awry. With that,
Doug, your 5 minutes are up, so could you wrap it up, please?
Yep, I'll just go ahead and summarize my questions for you that I'd love to get answers for. Question 1, what exactly is the intention of the guide? Question 2, how do you plan on monitoring or managing the age of guests? Question 3, why is the city choosing to single out a particular area of the city? And has council verified if it's in violation of any constitutional rights? And question 4, does an owner have the opportunity of appealing each and every complaint, or are they required to wait until they strike out?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would you
As I kind of reviewed at the last meeting, when questions came up about the guide, the intent is that's going to be a 1-page document with basically the address of the location, so the people who are renting know where they're at, and contact numbers for emergencies, and then some of the basic rules, noise ordinance, nuisance ordinances, the fireworks ordinances, and those kinds of things, and like a little paragraph to identify, these are in neighborhoods, be respectful, that kind of thing. It's not gonna be used for any kind of ulterior advertising or anything like that. It's just an informational, that gives them quick information to renters that is gonna be visiting the place. In regards to occupants, that can be self-regulated by the SDR owners. Basically, how that works is that's going to compute their occupancy determination. So if they have children under 10, they don't have to worry about them being counted as a part of that occupancy. In the single family district, it was pretty well documented through the data of Granicus that the largest number of short-term rentals were in the single family district, and the largest number of units being increased were in that district. And in regards to the identified impact of housing and the conversion of single family dwellings into short-term rentals, that was the reason, that was the district that was specified to have a cap. In regards to insurance, that was identified at last meeting to verify that as part of the application process. The parking schematic can be a hand-drawn sketch. And I have aerials that I can do of each property, and those are, people can tell me where they can park. So it's not meant to be a complicated process, but more just to identify if they do have adequate parking for the anticipated number of people that are going to camp. Maximum occupancy, when reviewed, a lot of different ordinances. This was a very common way to identify it, and none of them had it. I believe both other ordinances did have some kind of maximum occupancy. I did review all of the listings this morning and compared the number of occupants that they listed and the number of bedrooms and floors that each building had. And I found that 92% of units currently in the city would meet this definition of an occupancy. So that the numbers, I reviewed 187 of them, and so about 15 that would advertise more people than our occupancy would allow. And then the grace period, I haven't considered anything like that. It's nothing that has come up before. If there's an active appeal, that's probably something that can be discussed and perhaps give them some opportunity, give some time to format that appeal. And in regards to complaints, complaints may come, but complaints not verified and action not taken. There's no necessary need to appeal. The only time you have to need to appeal is an actual action is taken. So, there's a serious complaint made, they're going to be reviewed, they're going to be verified, and if they have merit, they'll be acted. I think that was all. Anyone else?
Monica Ross, 109 East Michigan Avenue. And I primarily have a few questions that I want clarification on. In general, I'd like to thank Scott and the City Commission for what they've come up with. I think they've worked very hard on it. Has anyone run past the occupancy, the age thing? Federal housing laws say that you can't have age as part of housing. Has that been run by our city attorney for a determination on if we should have the age thing in there? That's one question. The other note is in regards to the good neighbor guide. You're stating that they have to give a copy to the renter. Most rental contracts are signed oftentimes a year in advance, and most renters or most owners will give all of this stuff to them at the time they sign the rental contract. It just seems to me that at least number 3 and number 4, under on page 3, where it talks about who the local agent is and, you know, some of the city ordinances as well as the parking, a schematic of the parking should be posted in the unit. Because more than likely they got that information 6 months to a year prior. And it would be more effective to be in the unit when they got there, just as a reminder. And I have one other question. Just for my own personal, what's a short-term rental personal unit? I just didn't know what that term meant. Other than that, and Mr. Mack already asked about the short-term rental units board. Wonder, is that going to be an appointed board? Is that going to be city council? Who's it going to be? A clarification on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
In regards to the occupancy, age, the ordinance draft was reviewed by the city attorney, and he didn't have any issues with that particular item. The good neighbor guide, I guess the intent of that is almost to have it like a laminated sheet that can read right in it. And then they have it. In regards to the other local agent information, parking schematic, that stuff they want to leave there, and that's how they transmit it to the guests. That's totally fine with me. So, the short-term rental. Personal, yeah, my handwriting. That's defined in the ordinance as a accessory dwelling unit on the same parcel as a principal dwelling that's owner. And then in the earlier discussions, we talked about the appeal process, and the zoning board of appeal was going to be named as the appeal board. So we would have to create a new body.
I was wondering if there's any chance, and we already 437 now. We could bring some of that up on the screen, like show how much, how big a percentage SDRs have grown in the last year. And I'm a little confused why you don't feel like there needs to be a cap. If you combine personal, individual residential homes and multi-family dwellings, which include apartments and condos and duplexes, that's the kind of housing that most families who are working in town live in. Those are the families that have kids in our schools. And right now, if you combine those two, you're at almost 16% of the housing in those two areas. And I think the multi-family dwellings should be included. And that cap should be already put down at 10% or something, because we are losing housing units to short-term rentals at an extraordinarily fast pace because of the current financial situation. And though I agree, we are having this country, we also need to have some fairness. And a regular person going to request a mortgage from a bank has to have money down. They have to prove that their income will pay for it all. People purchasing homes for short-term rentals are running a business. They make income from it that can pay their mortgage, their property taxes, and all that type of stuff. So it puts it on an unlevel playing field. And I really feel like we've accommodated the tourists in the town a lot. But get 50 new jobs, where are those people going to live? probably not a lot of them are gonna want to drive from Charleston or Harbor Springs. We can't offer them housing in Boyne City, that'll even work. So I think you need a balance here, and I would strongly recommend that you put a cap on where we are now. And then as short-term rentals go away, we can maybe replace them, but we've got a high number of them in our small town. Thank you. Can you bring that up so people can see it? How much it's grown in the past year? Like, can you put it up on the screen?
I'm not sure, I think we have the chart that, with the-
Just from the last meeting, we didn't prepare another one. But as I checked today, there was probably 180 units. That was up from 175 in August. The majority of the growth happened in the traditional residential district. As we monitored this through this last October, the change that we have noticed, the appreciable change, in the number of units has been happening in the traditional residential district. The multifamily districts, they basically remain constant. A few growth here and there, but nothing like the percentage that grew in the residential district. So that's really the reason that area that being that. If the city commission establishes that.
Can I ask questions here? Sure. So the ordinance as written gives us the ability to just put a cap in.
The way the ordinance is right now, it identifies the single family district. Is subject to a cap that the city commission can set. And as the single family district is identified as a traditional residential district in the zone.
So after the first reading, second reading, and so forth, it comes back to us to set a cap if we so choose, and a set of fees if we so choose.
I would consider those at the second reading, so you can consider it all at that one time. But yeah, okay, thanks.
Sharon Count, 81 Lake Drive. I have a question, regarding the licensing. You have in the ordinance that it's a 3-year license and then it's a 1-year renewal. Are there different fees for those, or is there only one fee at the beginning? How is the fee structure going to be structured? That's the first question I had. The second comment I had, I would agree with the gentleman that spoke over the Zoom. If there's going to be an ordinance for short-term rentals in the city, then I believe that the entire city should be under this ordinance, not just the single family district. But definitely think that's discriminating against the smaller homes versus the large homes that rent.
Could I just clarify the question you had? So the short-term rental as ordinance would apply to all short-term rentals in the community. What would be different in the residential area is that they're making a cap on that area. But the short-term rental would apply to all short-term rentals within the community.
Okay, well, that was confusing to me because under number 8 on page 3, it says issued per year in the single family district. So is the single family district different than the waterfront district?
That's just a cap. So number 8 is just saying that the city commission can adapt a cap for the TRD traditional residential district.
Oh, so you wouldn't have a cap in the other districts?
Correct. According to this draft, there wouldn't be a cap for the other districts, only the traditional residential district.
Well, I guess it's, as far as I'm concerned, I would be opposed to not looking at a cap in any of the districts.
Well, if it becomes a problem, if the ordinance is passed, the city commission would have the opportunity to possibly advocate
other zoning districts. Is there.
Um, Thank you. Those are the only comments I have. But thank you for the work you put into this.
Thank you. So the fact that this plan is structured through and how that would.
It's anticipated there would be, initial license fee, and then there would be a renewal fee. Initial license fee would probably be more. And then the renewal would probably be less. Those exact amounts, haven't been exactly calculated yet. The intent is to recoup all costs to, use through the ministers and enforce the ordinance. I'm still kind of calculating that. But I anticipate in the range of between $250 to $150, somewhere around there.
So, the first year, would someone pay for 3 years?
Yes, so the initial term would be that 3-year period. Then they have the option every year to add another year if they want to do that renewal process.
Or they wouldn't have to sign up for 3 years if they didn't want to, they would sign up for 1 year.
Well, there's the initial, it's supposed to be 3 years. Period.
Well,
Well, you don't have to rent for 3 years if you don't want.
okay, well, that's not how we talking about the last, like. Anyone else?
Sandy Pritchard, 526 East Winter. So if I'm clear, first reading means that, if you choose to pass this tonight, then nothing on this changes until the second. No, not until after the second. So in essence, you'd be adopting the ordinance and having to amend it down the road. Is that true?
We do have it, from my understanding, after the first reading, it is a possibility for change, but it's not ideal. That's the purpose of the structure.
So as required by the Boyne City Charter, ordinance amendments, which would be, if you pass this, then it would be an amendment to this. You pass this tonight, you accept it tonight?
No.
Okay. Wow, yeah, we're struggling through, I have concerns about the change of the occupancy age. We've gone from 24 to 36 to months to 10 years. And basically what you're saying is that they would be, anybody 9 years would be younger than that counted. I understand they're only 15 if they choose to exceed the proposed occupancy. It also means then that the definition of the bedroom doesn't apply because they don't have to. It doesn't matter if you've got 2 beds in a bedroom and 3 kids on the floor, it doesn't matter, right? So if you have a 3-bedroom house and 3 floors, you've got 6 for the bedrooms plus 6 for the 2 per floor. You've got 12, and then an unlimited number of children by became this correct. Penny's right. We were 48% of the SDRs are in the 40% of the change in SDRs is in the traditional district. We've gone up 31 units just since December of 2021. I don't understand. I guess I'm going to need to explain why we're not putting in place a cap at this time. I might have missed that in your explanation, but I'm still not clear. Why are we not setting a cap at this point, and why are we not stating fees? It's something to go forward. Accessory dwelling unit says that it may be contained within an existing single family home. And as it relates to the personal unit, it becomes confusing or contradictory. A personal unit is an owner occupied property, all things on the surface of that property, with an auxiliary dwelling unit that is used as a short-term rental. So the implication is the personal unit is just the AHU, not a duplex. But if you have a single family dwelling that somebody carves out are for themselves, and they live in one half, and they have a unit that's attached. And there is no limit on the number of days, apparently, that that person can do that in their personal unit. You've defined short-term rental as 28 days per year. You only rent out for more than 28 days. If you rent out for 28 days or less, then this policy apply. Short-term rental definition says more than 28 days. What you described in terms of the licensing to me sounds like it's evergreen. The rolling additional year, unless they transfer the property. So basically, if there is a change in the cap, how many ever SPRs exist at that time remains constant unless that person chooses to exit the business or not get a license. So basically, any statement of a cap or change of the cap would not take effect until 3 years. That's what it implies. As you said, short-term rentals are not, throughout the city are not included. A short-term rental personal units are not included in the calculation of the cap. The thing that kind of blows my mind also is number 16 on page 4. It says that you reserve the right to lower or amend your number of short-term rental licenses at any time, but not to the detriment of existing short-term rentals. Detriment means causing harm. You are absolutely setting up for losses.
See, your 5 minutes are up, so.
Okay, well, it's not fair and equitable, and if we're protecting the SPR owners, where's the protection for the traditional owners? Thank you.
Just to clarify, the process of adopting the ordinance first reading. To the second reading, you can make changes, but I would advise not to make any substantive. And then after, if it is adopted, they can go through the amendment process at any time after that. Basically the same for a second reading. The change in the occupancy age, again, that was reviewed by the city attorney, the issue there, that is that children, still have a choice to go where they're going. And they, shouldn't be counted as part of those documents. Cap would be the number of licenses. And until we have an ordinance adopted, there's really meaningless to establish a cap, not capping. You give an idea how many would allow in the future, but it's really a meaningless sum. The ADU is an owner occupied. That's a critical part of an ADU. That the owner has to live on the property. So in the case of a duplex, if the owner lived in half and only the other half rented out, that would be considered an ADU. 28 days, by definition, an SPR is anything rented over that. So if you rent less than that, you're not short-term rental. So you would not fall under the restrictions of this. And then I'm not quite sure I understood the detriment question.
Anyone else?
Barbara Wise, 523 Southeast. I appreciate the work that you guys have done with the commission. A lot of this strikes me as a solution in search of a problem. I don't want to keep beating these dead horses that you see that everybody's makes us complain. But just basic economics is at play here too. We had a only our rental program this summer within the past couple months, just because they weren't making, they paid X amount for the house, they weren't recouping that. They could use their money elsewhere to make more money. And that's what I think what we're getting, but as the volume goes up, the return on investment for everyone starts to go down because, homes get gobbled up at a lower price. It just doesn't make sense that, and particularly as home values continue to rise, it's like, you can't rent this thing out and make the money you need to. You're better off using the money somewhere else in the market. So I just want to throw that out there. Oh, that house that was sold to a part-time resident, and they won't be using it more than, 8 weeks this summer. So I'm not sure that solves the housing issues.
I'm Michelle Nicole Croswell, 30 West Lincoln. Only two small points. I agree with Sally and Penny regarding the personal property, and I know that's something that's been debated and talked about at all of these meetings. However, it just feels like that serves the purpose of housing, to have that part of the overall situation versus having that as something separate. So those not falling under that umbrella seems like it's not even just find one. The other point is about a cap, and I talked to Hugh, independent of this meeting, and also talked to Scott, which was great. So thanks for your time. One of my suggestions was, why don't we just put a cap now? And I was told that we can't do that because the ordinance is in process. And so the thought was to not possibly, so looking at other solutions or other suggestions might be to not allow any additional at this point, because we know that people are gobbling homes up for different reasons, but to not allow any new at this point, whether that's defined as any new that are purchased at this point or new that become active at this point, would help the housing situation and would help the short-term population. So those are just two thoughts that I had, and I know because I always sit down and think that I have something else that I should think. Those are my two.
Anyone else?
Hi, Lindsay Burrow, I teach Southeast Street. Thank you for your work on this. This is a lot of work. Reading through it, looking over it. It might be a full-time job for whoever has to take on enforcing. So I truly wish you good luck with it, not no sarcasm. A couple of things I wanted to point out. We are short-term rental owners and property managers. So just some like logistics that make sense to me. We talked about sharing contacts with neighbors, something that we do right now, but I would love to see that on the city website, some way that I can find out who owns that house and the cars are parked illegally, and I can just call them as opposed to calling the police. So website, or making it mandatory for people to share with their neighbors, or somehow with that would be great to see that. Defining a local agent seems a little messy. We are local agents. Stuff to have it really clear. But so someone can live downstate, but as long as they have someone on site, if needed within 45 minutes, it's okay. So it could be an HVAC company that they call, or I'm just confused on who that local agent is. And if they have to, like, someone on record, or like an HVAC person or whatever. The occupants might be shooting myself in the foot here. I don't think we should include that. I think if you wanted to include any number at all, it should be 2 years old and older. That's how the rental sites do it. And basically, the reason you don't ask for that kids to be in a bed is because they're in a cabin fire, maybe co-sleeping their baby and things. As soon as they reach over to their bed, usually. And so my husband and I have 4 kids. we don't rent an Airbnb that sleeps two and then put our 4 kids on the floor. They're little, we wouldn't probably fine with that, but it just doesn't seem safe. It's also like, I think Doug said, it's really hard to monitor. I can see that being really gray and hard for the person that's trying to deal with a complaint. Later on, they were all under 10. So just a thought there. For the licensing, it said you renew, so it's like right now I apply to renew. I'm good this year and I'm good 2 additional years. I think that it shouldn't be for 3 years. Again, kind of shooting myself in the foot here. It should be annually. Just apply, and you can maybe get a little grace period by this year, and at the end of 2023, I need to reapply. Larger fee at the beginning sounds great, smaller fee later on would be wonderful. And the reasoning for that is there's going to be a lot of turnover. We saw this huge spike this year. Last year was a really, really good income for short-term rentals. Everybody wants to get on it now. Housing went up, people bought, they're not gonna make as much money as we did 2 years ago, all the logistics. So they're gonna be getting out of it. And if I like quit renting my house, I'm probably not gonna call the city and be like, hey, just don't keep doing my rentals. And that if we do a cap, could then the license could go to someone else that would maybe want it or need it. So I'm an advocate of annual renewal. And then you talk about in that same number 8, the cap, the renewal time being, or the cap being set in December. If your renewal period is November to December, it seems like you should reevaluate the cap in January once you find out how many people are renewing. And then, under section 15.4, part D. So if there is a complaint, it isn't urgent, like a noise violation, I call the police, it's loud, I want it to stop, that makes sense. But if it's not urgent, the next day, it says still call the police. So I'm supposed to call the police, and then the police then say, oh, when we called and said that there were 15 people at this house, here's the video. And then they put it to the zoning board of appeals. Just wanted to make sure I have that clear. And then my last question is if there's a violation, I get a call, hey, remember one of your places is being too loud, and I then call and handle it and supply it within 15 minutes. Is that considered a violation or is it not a violation? Handle it quickly. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. In regards to the contact list, I anticipate that information will be made available to people who need it. Whether it's posted online or not, that's not determined yet. You know, that's all part of the administration process of how that's going to best work. It may best work to have a list out there. People can look and see and call them people, or it may be best if they have it with the police department, they can call them and get the contact information. That's something that I think as we work through the administration, will determine what is the best way. In regards to the local agent, that's a person that would have to be identified in the application form. And basically the local agent, you can act as a local agent if you want to. But if you want to have somebody that manages the property, basically the local agent is someone that can act in your stead. So if there's an issue, they can address.
They have to be within 45 minutes.
That's the way the ordinance is written right now.
Okay.
And then in regards to violations, depending on the type of violation, as you mentioned, if it's immediate, fees, call police. If it's not, if it's a concern, other concern about how the operation is, you can call the planning department, try to point them to the administration of the process. So if there is any kind of citation issues that's appealed, that will go through our office to set that out. You know,
That last one about a violation that can go quickly.
no, yeah, typically, any violations of any matter, there's always a period of time of that. So if things are remedied quickly, there's no issue.
Anyone else? Okay. Are you, would you like to start? Well, I appreciate the process. I appreciate the time that our community put into this and the administration put into this. The whole purpose of this was because we had a few party houses that were out of control. And we didn't have any tools to take care of that. And so I think now we have the tools to take care of the party houses, and we have the tools to make the whole process more fair. For example, I like the licensing process, the 3-year makes sense. That gives you some stability. And with the renewal process, I like the local representation within 45 minutes. That helps our police department and our administration to have. So that's what I envision. You have everything on file with the police. So if there's a complaint at midnight or 3 in the morning, the police have the address. They look it up and they know who the local rep is. They know how many cars should be parked there and where they should be parked. They know the local representation. It can be handled. There's enough information on record that we can immediately address it. That was the whole intent of the ordinance, not to be overpowering, but to give us the tools to take care of the ones that were in violation, especially the ones that were in violation too often. The good visitors guide, I'm in favor of that. However, I agree that it's laminated, as Scott said, a laminated sheet. I agree it's also available when you sign a contract to your clients. And it just gives us the ordinances that are in play, so people know about noise, they know about trash, they know about firewood, they know about fire pit, they know about garbage, anything, and they know where to park. It makes sense. As I've stated all along, the only issue I have is occupancy. I think the reason I have an issue with occupancy is I don't think it's important. If the police or Scott, or anybody in the city representing the city pulls up to a house after a complaint, they can observe if the parking, see the parking, if it's in violation or not. They can observe the noise, if the noise is in violation or not. They can observe fireworks if it's in violation or not. They can, we can enforce. What we can't enforce is occupancy, because I don't want to put our police department in the position of saying, I enter that house and count beds. Well, they don't have to count beds because it's already in the affidavit that they signed. So they know how many people should be staying there. And I still think it's conducive for them and force counting heads and comparing that to how many completed. So I don't see the occupancy as being something we should take on. I do, as a compromise, the 10-year-old makes sense. Anybody under 10 doesn't count. As a compromise, I don't know. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. Back to what I started with, we've accomplished, I think we got enough tools to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish. I think the next discussion is cap and fee. I don't think the fee is going to be a big discussion. I think the cap may be a big discussion. I am concerned, as was stated, that too much of our residential neighborhood is turning into Airbnb, short-term rentals. I also agree with Marv that at some point it has to slow down. It'll just take care of itself. Costs have got so outrageous that you cannot make money on short-term rental anymore. Our goal obviously is to have balance. That was the first statement we made. Our other statement was 50% of people believe we should have an ordinance. 50% of people think we should not have an ordinance, and they're both correct. So we're right back to that. But I think this is not a. It's a very fair tool to start the process. If things are not working, we have the right to look at this and review it in a year or 2 or 3, depending on data coming from Scott. So I'm in favor of moving forward. I am in favor of visiting the occupancy portion of this. I want to hear from my fellow commissioners. I am in favor of some cap on the residential, as recommended by Scott, and a cap that's going to address the rapid purchases of homes for short-term rental. As was stated before, if we slow down with a cap, if we slow down short-term rental buildings, it doesn't necessarily turn into automatic homes for our families. It's just not a 1-to-1 ratio. That's not going to happen, unfortunately. It's not going to turn into the workforce out. So I want to discuss occupancy more, but I am forward and just moving forward. Okay, again,
Sure. A little interesting to hear some of things brought up during the public speaking in regards to occupancy. The conversations that I was part of, there was one meeting that I missed, one STR specific meeting that I missed, but all the other meetings, the majority of the conversations around the occupancy level was in regards to the 10-year-olds not being counted. But I think that's an easy fix. If the comments are coming from STR owners that they also feel that 10 years old is too high, then we can tighten up that restriction. One comment was made that this is a heavy-handed ordinance already, and that's kind of where we found that it's not the commission's goal to obviously eliminate STRs. I know there's a group of people within the community that do not want STRs at all. I know there's a group of people, you know, the other side of the spectrum is they favor STRs and they believe they should be unregulated. But I think we come down to the middle and we're here to solve the issues. Every complaint that I personally heard as far as partying late at night, too many 20 people staying in a 2-bedroom house, fire pits, smoke, all of those complaints are being addressed by this ordinance essentially. If you break the rule 3 times, you're going to lose your license and you're not going to be able to do an STR anymore. So that's what this is established essentially. Ours is very in line with the other 15 communities. Scott's done a good example showing that. Some questions I have specifically or that I'm interested in knowing before we get to the point of putting a cap is knowing some more data. I've had a lot of conversations. People want to say we should be like Charlevoix, our cap should be at 80. And we are similar to Charlevoix in many different aspects. We're very different than Charlevoix in many different aspects as well. You just start counting hotel rooms in Charlevoix versus hotel rooms in Boyne City. And so with that decision on capping the TRD, is going to be an economic impact. I understand that. I know some people don't understand that or can track and see that completely. So I personally need to see some numerical values, to see how we're going to impact the community of Boyne City on an economic level. But I do agree there needs to be a cap. As far as fees, I would like to kind of weigh that out, get some more input from Scott and his department. I've asked him a few times as far as how this is an impact his department specifically in day-to-day business and what those fees need to look like. And his input's been that it's not going to be a substantial fee. It's going to be very reasonable fees. As far as the visitor's guide, I would like to see some type of draft or something put together. Again, looking at the other 15 municipalities, it's common that there's a visitor's guide standard in their ordinances as well. But just get an understanding of it. If I'm going to pass an ordinance that says it's a requirement, or kind of like to understand what that requirement is that I'm setting. So I'm okay with the ordinance. I had a few questions at the beginning of the meetings that we did this spring, and I think we've come to a good spot. I know some people feel it's heavy-handed, some people feel it's not heavy-handed enough, but I think the majority of the complaints that I've personally heard can be addressed by this ordinance right here. So that's fine.
Yeah, I guess I'll start back kind of, well, first, thanks again, Scott, for, getting us, as far as we've got. Thanks to everybody in the room that, there's been quite a few that have participated. Again, there's been a couple of conflicting statements. I thought the last, couple of times we made a compromise on the occupancy. I could be absolutely fine with, Tom, I said that the last time with no occupancy limit. We did talk a lot about that at the last meeting, and where the 10-year-old came from is at least at that point in time, you're saying nobody 10 and under is going to be out there rabble-rousing, doing the complaints that started this whole. So I don't understand some of the comments that were made that, about the age thing. I get it, there's some that it was stated even on the line there that, they're not comfortable asking. I think I would see it as a very simple process. I mean, as they're filling out their information to stay in place, you're not, all you're doing is saying who's staying, is Bill and Susie and Johnny and Jimmy and, it's pretty simple. And then, in age, put behind, kids. I don't see that as very restrictive at all. The guide, we talked a lot about the guide. The guide was set, we talked about that the last time. It was made to be simplified. It's not made to be, as was stated, again, to be this thing that, okay, now, George and Lisa are going to go sell advertising on this guide, stuff like that. They make their own guides. The way that we talk about this was going to be a one-page, very simple thing. Here's what we can and can't do as far as the ordinances that were in this, which were very basic. There was only like 3 or 4 of them. And so I saw that as fine, having the contact numbers on it for that location. Be it, if Lindsay and Mara's place, there it is, there's their phone number. Or if they don't manage their own stuff, then Tom manages his stuff, and there's Tom. I think the guide, it was stated that almost everyone had a guide. No, there's only 4 that have a guide, out of all of them that we, that Scott's been doing the numbers on. So I don't care if we have a guide or not. I thought it was a compromise from the last few meetings. The cap, we talked a lot about the cap, to
back to Scott's clarification, I think there was some miscommunication, Scott, what I mean, there was some questions I didn't understand, why there may be a cap, and maybe, we haven't talked about it yet, we don't know what it would be. Maybe in the, TRD district and not in the other, because there's the need for it. I mean, those are not where we're seeing any issues. And for the answers to the questions of, well, these were just not being fair to our community members. Well, there are, no one knows, well, I'll take that back. I think there's one person that lives in Water Street. Well, so no one's living in those local families. Condos. The application fee we had talked about. I want to know more about that. That's part of my questions. How much? Again, I did not read this or the way we discussed it, Scott. I thought that it was at the last meeting we were making a compromise for any of the SBR people. I'll pick out Lindsay and Mark that have them or whatever, and then they want to continue them. They're taking reservations out. I think, who knows? So I saw that as you get up for 3 years, or you can just do yours 1 year at a time. You're doing it 1 year at a time. Guess what? You get to complain. You're gonna have some ticked off people in a couple of years. So I guess I didn't see it as everybody was signing up for 3 years. So I think we need to discuss that. And then as far as the, how much, the rolling thing, that's the way I read it, is that if you signed up, and you were doing 3 years, is that, every year, before the end of the year, you would have to sign up to extend that year at the end of your 3 years. But it didn't just automatically happen, which is how you wrote this. Let's see. So going through the ordinance on number 10, the complete application. So I just think, Scott, that for anybody that would be using one of these or something, I think we just need to extend that sentence a little bit. That they aren't being licensed by. What's the notification process? 48 hours, 24 hours, a week, I think that we need to have a timeline that we would let somebody know, because it's kind of open-ended. It says complete application, and then after the city received it, again, okay, I'll pick out the market, they bring in their application, and then they don't know, or where are they at? I think we need to have something that says, okay, within X days, we're going to give you the thumbs up, thumbs down, or something like that. The going on to number 15 on that, and this is just of the main part of it. This was before the regulations. The license become void upon expiration, revocation, and I know we say it in 14. But I think it needs to be restated in the transfer of the property by the city under this ordinance. So, because 14 states it, but I think it could be confused with 15, with mine. We don't have to change it as mine. We talked about the appeal board. It was asked a couple of times again tonight. We talked about the ZBA doing that. I don't have a problem with ZBA. Again, it stated that, the license renewal, shouldn't be for 3 years. I thought that was a good compromise. I would protect, something that they're trying to run with, the way I said. It was stated that, I guess I'm confused on, I'm not confused on the personal unit, but we had a lot of conversations about the personal unit. And I thought, the whole, again, I'll go on Tim's comment that there's some people that just are like, I don't care, I don't want SDR period. And that's fine, it's a fine attitude to have, it's just not correct. So I guess, you know, the dwelling unit where it, the owner occupied thing, if someone, if something, it is owner occupied. That's the whole thing about that part of the movie. So if they're carving out, carving their house into a duplex, so be it, all they did was cut down their own living space, but if nothing else, we've already got on the books, as far as the city that, you can build a house in your backyard. I mean, that's new, it's all improved stuff and everything like that. So the accessory dwelling and on the owner occupied stuff, I'm all for that. If we have more of it, that's not taking anything away from housing in this town. And I know the housing in this town is very expensive. And we don't have. Well, Tom said it again. It's not, if we stop this tomorrow, we just said, you know what, they're illegal, we're not allowing any short-term rentals in the city of Boyne City. It doesn't change. There's not going to be this flood of all these homes that are going to come on the market, and they're all going to be. This is not right. It was asked about the violation in Lindsay and yours. There is a violation. You got your name with it. It wouldn't even raise the even be a question. In my opinion, is that correct, Scott?
Well, I think it's important to think a violation would be.
Sorry, somebody talking there.
In the terms of an ordinance, the violation is an actual citation. That would be
Yeah,
not a complaint. A complaint is addressed, it's issued, non-issued. So that's clear.
okay. I'm good with that. And I think I'm done. Yes, Mayor.
Well, Scott, how should we move forward?
Well,
Mr. Mayor, voice in.
I think you guys have done a pretty good job. Down the detail here.
I'm sorry, why would you not speak?
Okay, it's none of, I can do whatever I want to see. Thank you. So the issues that I see is we have the renewal, the 3-year renewal. It
Right.
seems to be a bit awkward now, but that was in response.
that was in response to giving them that time and me thinking through this process, that was the best way to do it. I find it difficult to issue a 1-year license, a 3-year license, and so, there was a standard. And, the cost to issue the initial license for 3 years as opposed to 1 year would be exactly the same. It doesn't prevent someone that only wants to operate for a year to rescind their license and say, hey, I'm done, you can take me off and you can do that. So they would have that option. But to implement a process where you have 2 initial license periods, I find that a difficult thing to manage and administer. So I tried to make my life a little easier how I adjust it.
So would grants be able to let you know if someone's not renting their home, they have a license, and you can contact that person to see if they are willing to give it up so we can keep revolving?
Yeah, they have the active rentals. So if someone pulls their advertising off of those platforms, they would come off that list. And then we can reach out to them saying, I notice you're not advertising anymore, or just taking it off for a couple of months, or is this a permanent kind of thing? And then, if that is, they can say, yeah, I'm done, rescind it, or no, I plan to, go on next season, so this is a little break. So, yeah, we can have that conversation.
The other thing is we did change the occupancy from 2 years to 10 years to just accommodate certain things that traditionally for what we sell 2 years is the minimum.
Yeah, most ordinances had that, some kind of age limit and most had an occupancy limit. So that 10 years with the suggestions with the commission to, give some flexibility in the occupancy number. So, I think that to be adjusted would be not a substantive change. I think it would be a minor change. Well, if the commission wants to change it, I don't see an issue there. If you want to eliminate the accuracy or change that, I would like to talk to the city attorney to see if that would register as a substantive change where you'd have to come back for the first reading.
Yeah, that's what I got. So essentially, you're recommending that we don't proceed with the first reading until you hear back from the.
I would recommend proceeding. I think you're 95% there. And I think this ordinance accomplishes what we set out to accomplish. So it would be a motion to approve this draft ordinance as presented and schedule a separate for November 15th. And then at that time, we can have discussions about cap number and fee. Yes. Mike?
Mayor, to clarify, going back to our meeting schedule for this year, when the commission approved the meeting schedule, the meeting dates in November were set for November 1st, not the 15th, as the alternate meeting date. So the commission at that time moved the meeting forward. So that currently is not an available meeting date. Our meeting dates that are set for November are the 1st and the 22nd.
I'm not gonna do it.
Not the 15th. So, based on what that was scheduled as, you go back to Scott's original recommendation, which would be to our first available date, unless the commission changes it to something else, is the 22nd for a meeting date. And then the commission would have to debate or decide whether it wants to keep it as a noon meeting or on a topic such as this, reschedule that as a 7 p.m. meeting. So. Yeah,
No, we just changed the meeting.
no, we have not changed anything.
We changed the meeting. We were changed.
No,
Correct.
Well, we adopted, or the then city commission, I don't know what you guys said, adopted
The calendar,
the
yeah.
calendar. So when I presented it, I had mentioned that the November 8th fell on election. So, I was questioning when I brought it up, which one I changed it to last November. So while you guys were talking, I will do that.
It's November. Did you?
So you haven't changed it. It was set for November.
Okay. That's a bit of information.
she gave it to me after we'd already discussed. So currently, the meeting schedule for November is the 1st and 22nd for your meeting dates. And then our meeting in December is on the 13th.
So how are we the first? We approved it at a commission meeting last year. At a commission meeting last. Oh, at the camp.
Right.
We moved it back.
Correct.
So Scott, you're saying that you're confident that what we're talking about, we could make some minor changes. You're looking at them as minor changes. Some of them, like I said, I would defer to the city attorney about the changing the occupancy number. And the other one in the response time for application, I think that's a pretty minor change. We can put that in there. Should we have any preliminary discussion about a cap number before we come to the second meeting? We can have that at the next meeting.
Cap and fees and everything is not a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not changed.
So then you feel pretty confident we can approve it as presented and the changes that we've identified here could most likely, fit into the second meeting. Right, I will consult with the city attorney and look at all those changes, and if they say there's no issue, we'll bring them, if not, we won't make a change.
Don't you think we should have nailed down the occupancy issue now, because that's part of the first reading?
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable, when it was brought up in the prior meetings, from my understanding, again, it was brought up that the complaint. People partying, so on and so forth, that, you know, the 7-year-olds and 5-year-olds aren't jamming out at 2 o'clock in the morning drinking, and so. From those conversations is what led to you changing it from your first recommendation, to changing it to this at those public comments at that time. But I mean, if the public comments at this meeting is putting us back, I'm more than comfortable going backwards and making it more heavy-handed ordinance.
I would agree too, as well, because we were just responding to, you know, some concerns, so I'm comfortable with you.
But I guess we
That's good.
okay, no, I will respectfully disagree with that. Especially when, you know, we have one of our bigger neighbors doesn't even have it on, because we went down, well, actually 2 of our bigger neighbors. So, down. I guess, I don't understand it. I guess I don't understand what we got back into an argument about it. I really don't. I think it was a compromise to say that, you know, I mean, again, I'll use Lindsay's reference. You know, her and Mark, oh, she's got, you know, 4 little ones. I don't understand the, I guess, and I said it at the last meeting. I live by a different standard, you know, I mean, I guess when I was traveling with the girls, when they were young, we got a hotel, there you are, you know, I mean, there was pillows and whatever there was, you know, because I guess I didn't have the dollars to travel with it, so I don't understand it. Plus I'm also from a big family, talking about that. You know, all we're doing is trying to make this harder for, you know, families to come to our community. In my mind, I think it works opposite of the kind of the things that, you know, Sandy and Penny said, is that, you know, we want more, you know, family people here, and you know, dictating, you know, that, you know, kids aren't allowed, but they're going to be counted. It's counterproductive. It just doesn't make any sense to me. They're not the ones making the trouble. I guess I'll have to defer to Chief, but you know, how many issues have we had with families? Have we had any? Chief, can I ask you that question? Can I ask you that question? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
I don't know.
So,
Well, a couple different short-term rentals, I don't know if times they're families or parties or
good. Well, I mean, there's, you know, a couple of instances that came to you, said were part of it. Or that's what we were both of that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Marty. The issue is not 2-year-old, 10-year-old. The issue is, as Doug brought up at the beginning, if you have a loft or a rec room in the basement with a walkout basement, you have 2 bunk beds, that's 4 people in that bedroom. And that would be not count, would be too many. So, you know, that was my issue. I think we should stick with the 10-year-old, because I agree with Marty that the young kids is not the issue. And families, we want to encourage families with young kids. My bigger issue is 2 bedroom or 2 people per bedroom, because you have a queen and 2 bunks, and that's for mom and dad and 4 kids. 6 people in that bedroom, or a loft, or a walkout basement. That's more my issue there. And I don't know how to solve.
Well, Scott, could you comment? I don't want to put you in the spot. What if we just didn't have an occupancy maximum? Because what I'm kind of learning through this process is the ones with short-term rentals are, you know, they live on what's available, and we're not going to be able to afford it as an 8-year-old or 10-year-old, and we just move it up to the property where it's controlled.
and you have all these other, the ordinances in place, do you see any drawback, it's not having them, other than, you know, the majority of, the ordinances that we do have that, but, it seems like it's something that should be probably,
Well, if the commission's confident that, you know, it's not necessary, it's, you know, definitely not needed. The idea, I believe, was the initial input was overcrowding of units. And that's why, occupancy limit was put in there. If that's not an issue, you don't need that.
well, did you say at the beginning of the meeting that you showed some rentals, 93% of them list?
92.5.
92.5. So would that be an amendment that we could put in as we move forward with the ordinance, that it doesn't become a problem, that we could put in occupancy?
Absolutely, yeah. I would, before I change that definition, I would consult with the city attorney to see, you know, eliminate it. That's okay, it's not a substantial change. I don't want to opine whether it is or isn't. But if it isn't, and that's the direction the city commission would go, you know, I don't see any issue removing it and then evaluate it and changes necessary.
So the best thing to do, in my opinion, is move forward as it's drafted. And then go from there.
Yeah.
I would echo Tim, because at that point in time, you could amend it backwards if you want. Because I think the whole, I guess it would be counterproductive to one of the whole reasons that the whole SDR thing started.
Bachelor party.
But yeah, exactly. Was again because of the noise of the party. So I mean, if you're gonna allow, you know, 20 guys to go into a 3-bedroom house, we didn't really do much.
Yeah.
So I entertain a motion if we're at that point.
I'll make the motion to approve the recommendation from planning director Scott McPherson to review the proposed short-term rental ordinance and schedule for a second reading on November 1st at 7 p.m. November 22nd, 2022.
Well, I thought Tim said he couldn't be here on the 22nd.
Yeah, well,
No, the 15th.
Oh, okay. That was my.
we do have to have a motion, whether or not we want to change the time. Was there a second?
I'll make a second, and my only question is, and the further discussion would be, so summarize the occupancy issue.
Well, we are going to approve on first reading as it is presented here, with the annual meeting minimum for a person within the county until they're 11 years old is part of the occupancy.
And my opinion,
Yeah.
Two and ten, so 2 per bedroom, 2 per floor. But that could be discussed further.
yeah, Scott's gonna get feedback from the city council, is my understanding.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Okay, so have we done everything correctly, you, Scott, for the first reading? Yeah. All right. Any further discussion? Just a roll call, please.
Democrat,
Aye.
Conklin,
Aye.
Moody,
Aye.
Meekum,
Aye.
motion carried.
Okay, I would entertain a motion that we move the November 22nd meeting that we do 13
I'll make a motion that we move the regular scheduled meeting on November 22nd to 7 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Conklin,
Aye.
Moody,
Aye.
Meekum.
Aye.
Democrat,
Aye.
motion carried.
Okay. Moving on to new business, item A. We have the short-term rental compliance monitoring contract. Welcome back to Richmond.
Thank you, sir.
As you may recall, back in July, the commission approved the renewal of the 1-year contract with Granicus to provide the short-term rental address identification services. Now, with the anticipated adoption of the short-term rental ordinance, it's being proposed that a compliance monitoring service now be added to the existing Granicus contract. The existing address identification contract is based on 21 listings at $30 for a total price of $6,740. Currently, there are 265 listings. I just checked that today and then went up to 280. With approximately 181 rental units. Unlike the address identification, the compliance monitoring service is based on the number of rentals. This service provides a constant monitoring of all the confirmed rental units and would identify any units that are operating without a license. So they would constantly monitor all the various platforms. And if we have input into their system that they have an active license, they would come up with non-compliant. So once those units are identified as non-compliant system, their system generates a letter up to them letting them know there's an ordinance in place, you need to obtain a license, it's process, and claim, all that kind of information. So it gives them the time to correct that. So yeah, that second letter is sent out and there's no response made within, required time, then the second letter will be sent out. That would be a violation, saying, hey, you're in violation, your others have license, and these are the repercussions that can happen, citations, and whatnot. And that was. Then prior to an ordinance coming online, it's recommended that a notification letter be sent to all current and past identified rooms. So in our system, we have, even though they're not active now, there's close to 500 that have at one time have spoken. So we can send out a mass mailing to anybody just to cover that base. Okay, there's ordinance now, considering your report tomorrow. This is the process, and this is how you do it. So with all this work to be done, we have to generate those letters and get them in their system and get them all up, ready to go. Sometimes we need to set up this before the ordinance comes online. And given that required lead time, it's suggested to approve that contract now. So the orders come effective in January, and then we're all ready to go. A quote for the compliance monitoring service has been provided that lists the annual fee of $4,050.50. That's based on 180 rounds. This would be in addition to our existing contract that we signed in July. And Granicus has indicated that they would prorate that amount based on when this contract is signed. So if it's approved tonight and signed in the next couple of days, that contract would be about $3,040. Currently, the planning department in its contract services has the funds to cover this cost. And then this total cost, the total cost of the contract would be recouped, was anticipated to be recouped with those licensing payments. So it's recommended that approve the proposal with Granicus for 1 year contract for the compliance monitoring services for an annual price of $4,050 to be prorated for the remaining contract term after the contract. So, any questions? Any questions or comments from the public? Moving along. George, you want to start?
You answered my question.
Yeah, I'm in full support. Scott needs this tool to get the data that he needs to make a proper decision.
Yeah, by default, I mean, I'm just curious, did you know that Cause I was under the assumption when we approved the contract earlier, that that was the contract that we needed. That I didn't realize that it was separated, the compliance monitoring. How, have you known that from the beginning?
Oh, yeah, in their initial application, they list out, or review, they list out all their services.
Okay,
And it was purposely thought out that we only wanted the address of notification to begin with, because that's all we needed. We weren't
Right.
doing it. And now we're moving to the next step, in order to the next module that we kind of need.
gotcha. So if we approve this tonight, are you gonna start those services from the next couple of days when it gets signed, or from
Yeah,
when
it'd
that
probably be,
ordinance goes into effect?
no, the contract will be signed on Monday, submitted back to them, and then I can begin working with them to get the system set up and ready to go.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I'm for motion,
So my only question was gonna be, okay, so now we're going on $4,000 to get more in a year, which I understand that's part of the reason for the fees and everything like that. So next year, can we just go with the compliance monitor?
No, kind of need the address identification, to identify who's doing.
Can't we identify the addresses and give them those?
No, they review 60+ platforms daily, every week, and give
Right.
out.
And there's mainly two.
Well, yeah, but there's no,
I got it.
so I don't think we would have the capability to do that.
I think, I get it. I guess, I'm not gonna make the argument tonight, but, moving forward, if we can steady in a couple times tonight, I think that, I think this whole concept is, is slowly reaching, a critical mass. And, I just, going on in perpetuity, I don't want to just keep spending money.
All right, well, as I said, for the recommendation, I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation from planning director Scott McPherson to approve the proposal from Granicus for a 1-year contract for short-term rental compliance monitoring services for an annual price of $4,050.50 to be prorated for the remaining contract term after the contract is signed.
Is there a second? Second. Second, any further discussion? Jessica, roll call please.
Johnson,
Aye.
Moody,
Aye.
Meehammer,
Aye.
Baxter,
Aye.
Nemecheck,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on, item B, the new business, Muskrat Building public parking space request.
Yes, just as the agenda was being prepared, we received a request from Muscat Distilling at 121 Water Street. And they're requesting to use 2 parking spaces immediately in front of their building for a special event on Saturday, October 29th. They're proposing that be set up with barricades and serve as a food prep space for a local chef with Fresh Coast Catering to prepare plated meals for their patrons of the patrons of the Muskrat as well as the general public. They've done similar events with their property using the back alley over the summer, but they're losing that space temporarily as their landlord is utilizing it for construction station. They would be running this event from 5 to 10 p.m. on that date. It would be insured and licensed following all applicable health department regulations, and that was submitted by Augie Engelbert of Muskrat. Even though this request was not for a food truck, which the commission has recently ruled on, it seemed close enough that I felt that it should come to the city commission for your consideration rather than just administration. Given the unique and limited nature of this request, and that we're beyond our peak busy season, even on a Saturday, I didn't see any objections to this request. So it was recommended that the city commission consider this request to use that, and if the commission was comfortable for it, giving them approval, subject to working out the necessary details with city staff. And you have the application that was included with materials in your agenda packet. And then there's a drawing that shows what's proposed at the location. They included their insurance information, and then they had some neighboring businesses that included their support of it as well.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I think it was long. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Happy to field questions, but. Yeah, I can stop. So we had a great first summer at the Muskrat, but as all local businesses do here, we're really shifting gears into the fall and winter. And our core values of providing a great hospitality experience are the same, but we need to do that in different ways. Largely fall and winter focusing on more singular events where we can reach out to the community and more locals in this case, and in order to provide a differentiated and frankly responsible service of providing alcoholic beverages to people, food has always been on the top of the list. So while we don't prohibit people from bringing food in, to have an event where we can provide it as an option brings a new option to the community. And so that's where this request is formed. And we hope that it can be something improved, you know, on a conditional basis, and it's received well, and we continue the discussion about similar events in future years.
Thank you. We should bring questions for all the lines.
Yes, sir. So just to be clear, the parking space is going to be utilized by the chef.
Yep.
With the prep, not people.
Correct.
Any questions or comments from the public?
What is the, what is the special event? Is it like a
It's a Halloween.
Halloween party?
Yep.
Sure.
Jordan Peck, Boyne City Main Street Director. I'd just like to encourage us to, look at this as a creative opportunity to support one of our downtown business owners that has been super supportive of community efforts and community events, on this opportunity to create some more business for them in one of our slower shoulder seasons. So I've enjoyed working with both Augie and Matt at Muskrat Distillery. They've been a great addition to our downtown. And I think this would be a good way to show that support from this.
Anyone else? Sure.
Okay, and that 6.5 foot, so the sidewalk, how, I see like a proposed gated area. Is the sidewalk still gonna be utilized as far as cross traffic? How is that like patron line gonna?
The 6.5 foot is actually part of Water Street. That's the length of the white marking stripes on the road there.
Okay,
So there'd be barricades on either end of it and probably on the outboard end as well.
so the sidewalk will be
The
accessible.
sidewalk will be open and through traffic, and I anticipate by the 29th that our front patio will be gone as well for the.
See.
So the whole from the storefront to the road will be open for traffic. And we have no intention to exclude people from walking up and moving food from the shop. But I believe there'd be plenty of room for traffic.
Okay. And then just out of this, the local businesses that support it. The businesses directly to your left and right sign this.
Inspired Living, who hold similar sidewalk events like that has,
Yeah.
did not get a signature from
Provisions. Did you communicate with them? Or did they just not support it at all?
I didn't go to them on this day to get the signature.
Okay.
but they've been supportive of other events and catered food for us in the past.
Okay.
Any other questions from the public? Okay, we can move to
Yeah, no, I appreciate the due diligence to getting support from the locals, businesses there. That's always something that I weigh in the decision, and obviously I appreciate doing the due diligence and getting the certificate of liability and submitting that as well. The barricades, are they, what type of barricades are they gonna be, like the plastic water fill sections, or just like a pallet style?
My intention would be to reach out to DPW and get the stanchions, the angle barriers that they use to block off streets that they use for the other tent sales.
Okay,
And if that's not deemed sufficient, would be happy to go above and beyond.
Okay.
I mean, we also have the planters that are pretty substantial that we use for our front patio that will be available. We could create a 4-foot tall knee wall essentially on the type of thing needed.
okay. That would be my only concern, is just making sure that whatever those barricades are substantial to help protect. From traffic, obviously, the vehicles that are there, but yeah, that's all the questions I have, thanks.
Yeah, I have zero problem with it. I don't see this any different than what we allow states to do, so I don't see it now. If you're asking that it become a standing request, that would be something different. I have a problem, you know, especially kind of here and there again, which we've done at least 6 times now for state over the summer. So I don't, you know, the special event there, I don't have a problem with. And you know, thanks for all you do. It's having everything in place beforehand. Yeah, it's kind of what Tim said, safety, you know, very well, so if it's done safe, it's very safe, and I don't have that at all.
I'm in full support. This is what we do, support our local, anything that we can do to support our local businesses. Should be within our realm, so I'm in full support.
Okay, I am as well. So I would entertain a motion to, the Muskrat Distillery Public Parking Space Use Request.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation. Or approve the request from Muskrat Distillery at 121 Water Street to use 2 parking spaces in front of their business for food preparation on Saturday, October 29th, 2022. And give approval to city staff to work out necessary details.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Jessica, roll call please.
Moody.
Aye.
Caesar.
Aye.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on, new business. Item C, we have the downtown social district. Consider the recommendation from the Boyne City Main Street Board to approve a resolution granting authority to the Boyne City Main Street Board, working with city staff to apply for a social district within Boyne City. Good evening, Commissioner, Boyne City community. So our Boyne City Main Street Board, and it's October 3rd, 2022 meeting, reviewed the steps necessary for the creation of a social district for the Boyne City BBA district. So our first step is that we ask the Boyne City Commission to consider this preliminary step and entertain a resolution that will grant authority to the Boyne City Main Street Board to apply for that social district for him. Social districts, as many of us know, those are designated boundaries in which patrons are allowed to carry their alcohol drink out of a restaurant and walk around and enjoy it in the open air. Over the last few months, Boyne City Main Street board members and office staff have been looking into the application of this program for our downtown district. There's many other social districts throughout northern Michigan and in surrounding communities right here to us in Boyne. So our Boyne City Main Street Board members plan to work with local police chief Kevin Spade, other city personnel and state law for the development of the commons area that would be our own PC social district.
The commons area is created by contiguous licensed premises, which permits with permits to participate in the social district. What that means is our own commons area will be the area around our participating establishments. So if you could imagine Briggy's at one end, Cafe Sante at another, the Boyne River Inn at one end, the opposite side of the district, and the Eagles as well. So with all the other establishments in between, there was a potential idea for a map also included in this memo. The shaded area, this was just a potential map, was just to give us an idea of what it may or may not look like. Really, in social district maps from other communities, the commons area essentially makes up the road that where you have the contiguous license established. So all of Water Street from BRI down to the corner, over to the Eagles, and then all the way down and over to Freaks would make up the main thoroughfare for what's called the commons area. We can also additionally link via sidewalks to our parks, potentially Veterans Park, Sunset Park, which would fall within the district because of its relation to Cafe Sante. And then from Freaky over to Peninsula. And in our parks in Boyne City, that we do have a city ordinance that does allow open containers in the parks. So at this time, we just ask that our Boyne City City Commission consider this a preliminary step and entertain the resolution that will grant authority to our board to continue with this process.
Any comments, questions from the public?
Penny Hardy, 437 North Street. I just have some concerns about making sure that it's well controlled. Who's liable? I mean, if someone can get a drink here, go somewhere else and get another drink, and go another place and get another drink and just keep walking around, who's gonna know when they're drunk beyond their limit? Who's gonna keep track of that? Because bar owners are responsible to make sure that they don't overserve someone. How do you control that when they can wander all over town? I don't understand. But maybe there's a way they do it. There must be, but I'd like it explained. Like who would be held liable if someone got too drunk and caused a problem?
Jordan, do you want
Say which propriety sold them that drink that put them over the limit?
Jordan, do you want to go into how it works?
So how it would work is each licensed establishment is trained on how to spot intoxicated people, and it's on them to not serve them anymore. It happens now. I don't see this being an addition to it. That's what they're supposed to be doing, watching out for that. They'll have to watch out for it more, that people are walking around. All the places I've talked to, all the different departments and cities that have done this, they've had no issues whatsoever so far. And there's a lot of places inactive right now.
So one of the responsibilities that will be part of shouldered by the Boyne City Main Street Board will be development of a maintenance plan, which looks into a lot of the different details surrounding the ongoing maintenance of keeping a social district alive and active and under control. So signage is a part of this. Part of this procedure, as well as cups that we could be done any number of ways, but identifying cups for an establishment and many Boyne City Main Street, potentially supply a sticker that goes on the cup. So there are ways for us to determine through the maintenance plan how to control and identify and try to keep track of that. So yes, we do keep it safe because safety is certainly a concern for the Main Street Board, for city personnel, and why we're trying to work closely with police chief, Spade, as well as with staff, just to make sure that things are done right and safe.
I think to answer your question a little bit more simply, then, you know, Penny, I think, Chief lit onto it, is that there's nothing to stop you from starting at the BRI, walking down to the provisions, walking to the muskrat, then walking to the mesa, then walking to Sontag, then walking over to Lupol. If you make it this far now, I'm impressed. And so, I mean, it's, you know. And so, you can do that now, there's no, you know, check and balance. Two, we talk a lot about, you know, how.
If they're inside the establishment, it's easier for the people from that establishment to observe their behavior and speech than if they're walking out on the side. They can walk in, get a drink and walk back out.
As a previous barber, I would argue with that. It's a lot easier to tell somebody when they're walking away than when they're sitting on the bar stool. But we did talk a lot about it, and Jordan had, you know, alluded to some of the things that still haven't hashed out. You know, the cup situation, the sticker situation, those are things that, you know, they're talking about it. That's what needs to be recorded.
Hi, I'm Shelley Welch, the owner of North Imagewear downtown Boyne, and I just want to say that I support this recommendation. Just because, well, I did have one question. Is it during regular business hours or is it just during nighttime hours? But the reason that I do is because of the fact that people want to stroll. They want to stroll the streets. So if they're at one establishment and let's just say there's a long waiting line, they can take their drink. They can go into the retail stores such as mine, they can shop, they can bring more to the community, and then they can go on to their next location. So I'm in support of this, and I think it'll keep people in the downtown area.
A question, please, I'm sorry, I didn't put it on.
Senator Richard, 526 East Lincoln Street.
Thank you.
The only one question I have is, if I know that the cups of the sticker, are they allowed to go with a Sante cup into the village? Or from establishment, between establishments, still carrying the cup? I think liquor law says to keep.
So as I understand it, that can be determined by the store owner. So like the retail stores do not have to let anybody come in. Individual store owners could determine.
Learn that from one liquor license area to another.
Oh, no,
I'd like to jump in really quick. This is Doug Mack, 1110 Charlevoix. I want to also express my support for this. I think that especially in a post-COVID world, if that's where we're at now, I think bringing the social aspect of this to the city and continuing to support the downtown businesses is a phenomenal idea. And, you know, let's be honest. I think that alcohol it brings people together in a lot of environments. And I think the idea of them being able to enjoy the city on foot and be where they'd like to be is a fantastic idea. So again, I just want to show my full support and good job, Boyne City Main Street. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Marvin Elias, 523 Southeast Street. I was a guest bartender at Sante for their 10+2 thing 2 weeks ago. It was a blast, by the way. They had a little tent out in the parking lot, which is the road there. And they were vigilant about not allowing people to take a drink from there and walk into Sante. They're like, no, you cannot have a drink. I would say, yes, please. I think it's a great idea. I echo the books and program. Yeah.
Anyone else? Sure, I'll chime in. Mostly Yardley, your point where we're in. I think it's a great idea. Because everybody's struggling with their and the not keep residents of closed down. If anything we do to get some business people, I think it's a great idea.
And as far as security, all the bartenders in local places are trained by LCC through their San Francisco Corporation, which teaches the techniques of alcohol management. And almost every bartender I know in the area has this certification.
Is there anything you can tell us about the DRI?
Yes. I have lots of ideas, and I'm gonna go find with you guys in the future. I want to back then kind of take everything in. But we're shooting open in March. A lot of work to do.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move to commission deliberation. If you want to start.
Yeah, I support it. I know, some municipalities that have this and how it benefits as, Ms. Bush hit, people like to be able to walk and spend their money, and utilize the merchants in the downtown district. The only thing I was just gonna ask is if the chief of police supports it, and if, he's in part of it.
Yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, no, obviously, Dr. Foster said Main Street Board, I'm in full support. George, my only question is gonna be, and then clarify that, so you're, the map that you've drawn on here, we discussed the other day, you know, going over for the Eagles. And then, I guess, at any point in time, we can, adjust this accordingly. I know the chief was adamant that we didn't, you know, push it over toward the, early childhood for obvious reasons. There's nothing over there anyhow, but I guess my question was, you know, it's not open now, and there probably isn't a week that goes by that I don't get asked when the building is going to open. It's not on our map here, so that, you know, we'll push it down that next block as well. All I was going to suggest that when we'll pay it in now. At some point in time, it'll be open. But other than that, yes, great idea. I think it's gonna be great for town business.
Yeah, today I have really big. Of course, I want to support local businesses. My reservations are one, I'm not sure if we want this as our image of Boyne City for families. Families downtown, stroke streets, level kids. Mr. Bush, Mr. Faith, and I can tell you guys, 2030, the young people down in the public. I get concerned about that. I guess with that, I would like to know, you know, if this does pass, and in fact, is there a mechanism in place to rein it back in if there's too many problems, and the investigate people perhaps about too many issues? Is there some way to pull it back a little bit, or get rid of it?
Yeah. You know, this will be the Boyne City Main Street and the Boyne City of Boyne City program. So we will have the liberties to review this our social district plan and process throughout. You know, if we see that something's not working well down the road, that's something that we can certainly do. Yes.
Mike's got
One. Yeah, if you go to page 16 of the materials that were included, and I'm scrolling up to it here, and it goes to social district permit information for local governments on page 15. And at the top of page 16, it talks about how you can go about revoking the designation. So once you set it up, it's pretty well locked in place. But the city commission, the governing body, which would be the city commission, may revoke the designation if it determines that the common area threatens the health, safety, or welfare of the public, or has become a public nuisance. And then if you are looking to revoke the designation, you have to hold at least one public hearing on the matter, and you have to give notice per the Open Meetings Act, which is no real big deal. The second thing I'd bring to your attention is basically right below that, it's up on the screen.
the items that are required for it to be submitted on behalf of the community with the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. And these are the things that would still need to be developed. One is the resolution, and you could potentially approve that today. But then it's other items that are still yet to be developed, which are the management and maintenance plans, which would include the hours of operations and things of that nature, and the map or diagram. Again, there was a draft one that was included in your agenda packet. Jordan's indicated that that's not the one that they're looking to go at final. The question that the commission will want to consider is, are you comfortable releasing that authority to the Main Street Board and letting them determine that, and then a final based on the approval that you give today? Or do you want to see some of that stuff come back and have a final look at that before you give final approval on the approval? So it seems like everybody is supportive of going forward with the concept. And I guess it depends on how much rein you want to give to the Main Street Board to come and develop this, and whether you want it to come back to the commission before you're granting final approval.
I'm in full support for all the reasons that obviously were stated for our local businesses. Maybe address what you said, George. I think what we're condoning is responsible behavior by families, adults, parents, and I think there is a very responsible way for parents to enjoy a cocktail and still be mom and dad involved in the kids. Right? That's what we're condoning. We're not condoning drunkenness. And there is such an issue, and that we already have laws on the books for that. So. Full support.
I think Jordan should speak to this. I think so. Sort of Mike was saying was that the whole way in discussing this at the Main Street Board, it's not that they've gone into this willy-nilly in any way, shape, or form, and it's not that anything's even been established completely yet. So because part of the process was needed to know if the commission was even going to allow it to be pursued. So now moving forward, if this commission were to allow it. Now go.
So where you define certain things, and then you come back and then
that's sort of what Mike was talking about. How many steps you want to put in the commission into it. Right?
So the one thing that I think I feel is lacking is input. Has any of that been done? That we know what the community feels about this and what other business owners like the bars. Is there a step that we can take there to just engage public to make sure that there's a bit of that as we go? My initial thought is important to things that I would think I'd like to take the temperature of the community just to make sure that we respect what they feel. The other thing that I'm wondering about is I identified I think 3 events that would be Boyne Thunder and Christmas, and one other where people are walking around down the hall, and that kind of bothers people. So I can park in this map and make sure that we go from the BRI down to Veteran Park and Marine and all that sort of stuff. And I put for the Christmas event that always seems to draw last thing. But I would. And the other businesses too, they supported the business, people coming and, with a beer or whatever, to the businesses and, just to define all that sort of stuff. So, we have until next summer to, spring to really work through all of it. And in the context of it, this started because of COVID, where occupancy, restaurants and bars was really eliminated. So this was a way to deal with that. And then I think there's a sunset on this divine right, I think it's December 2024 that it's going to go away. So, that would just define those sorts of things. And then I know that's true that some of the communities had like a public area and where people can gather and set aside some areas. But I mean, I suppose before moving forward, I personally have to look some more detail as you go through this.
And there are a lot of things, a lot of communities who, you know, are had great success with it. I just want to and hear the whole community that you kind of decision. It's my thought. The voice of one. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Bush, again, owner of one engineer and local police officer. I would just be concerned of, you know, like Boyne Mountain when they had their festival out there that comes in here, that's a Mardi Gras type thing, you know, everybody gathering in the streets, drinking alcohol, you know, just so it doesn't turn into a great big party of younger kids and the ski crowd and all that. That's where I'd be concerned for the law enforcement aspect of it. And Kevin and his small group of officers having to deal with it. If there's a provision for that type of stuff.
And there are hours too that the community can set when it's, you know, from 2 o'clock till 10 o'clock, certain days of the week, you know, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So. Yeah, well, I mean, I feel that a person would fall out and spend 4 hours. We should say.
No, I agree. I kind of agree with what Marty and Mike were saying as far as they need to get the consensus from us if we're gonna allow it. There's no point in them going to do all the work if we're not gonna allow it. So they kind of have the consensus, I feel, from us. Now they need to do the work. I just hope they involve the chief, which I'm assuming they already are. Sounds like in the conversation that they're having. So any issues or concerns, because it's gonna be an impact and force at the department. So he's involved in the conversation planning aspect of it, but I think you kind of got the consensus that the support's there. Now it's just down to, do you need a motion from us tonight to move forward with the planning phase, or?
Yeah, it would be best to have the commission consider this as an entertainment resolution that will grant authority once the Main Street Board. Yes.
So you want a recommendation of approval of the resolution?
Yes.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation to the resolution.
Okay, is there a second?
Sorry.
Okay, so we're gonna be, what we're approving is the local governmental unit approval for social delivery permit, which is the official action that the city has. And then we are ceding all authority to Main Street.
No, that's
What his recommendation is.
the resolution, and then you're going to do the planning, just like what Mike was saying, getting the hashtagging out as far as the mapping, the planning and all that, and coming back to the city commission for the final approval, correct?
Well, Mike was suggesting that there be, you know, the possibility of there being another part to this process where we come back and, you know, review this once again with the city commission. But right now, this will give the Boyne City Main Street board the authority to go through with the application process, working with city personnel, Michigan state law, and one through the Main Street board and office staff to establish the social district.
Because on page 16 here, that what he was reading, you need a copy of resolution passed by the governing body, which would be us. Which I don't feel we should be passing that down.
Well, that's what the recommendation is right now, is for us to approve this. My recommendation is that they continue the planning, knowing that they have the support of the city commission, but there are details that need to be worked out, and then come back and we could approve the resolution. That's what I'm saying. But I believe we have a motion in the second. Yeah, we check it out.
Marty, yeah, I think we're discussion.
Yeah, well, all I'm gonna say is that, I think we can't, you know, to the point that, you know, what George asked is, you know, what control the commission has down the road, I think is laid out. And Mike, pointed that out. I think you've got, the Main Street needs the commission to say thumbs up or thumbs down in order to proceed. And that's why this was worded the way that it is because if they don't, if you're not going to grant them the authority to do the process at that point in time, then they can't even fill out the paperwork for the state. Is the way that it reads. But I think there's plenty of time. It's the Main Street Board. There's a well-versed group on there. Again, it's been talked about quite a bit on different ones, and I don't think there's been anything willy-nilly in any way, shape, or form on it. Chief was included and sat in on some of those meetings, and so I guess we either have to give them the ability to move forward and do the process or not. And I get what you're saying. I don't think you can, the way the state of Michigan wants it, I don't think you can go, okay, go gather all your nuts and then come back to us again. And because half the nuts are the process with the LCC.
Can I ask a clarifying question for Mike? So on page 16, that you're showing the governing body may revoke the destination. So would us as the commissioner, the city commission, lose that authority by passing this resolution?
No, you always have that up.
So this,
So you have to go through the process.
exactly, so if we approve this resolution tonight, and the Main Street's planning and all of there is not acceptable to the commission, the city commission is the governing body that revokes it. Is my understanding?
After we went through their process, correct?
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion. Did we have a second?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Cameron.
Aye.
Lassiter. Nemecheck. Conklin.
No.
Moody.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right, moving on, we have item B under new business. Rotary Park baseball field material purchase recommendation.
During a recent evaluation of the baseball field at Rotary Park, the need for additional infield stone was noted as a very high priority. Based on the recollection of my park staff, the city has not supplemented the stone material for more than a decade on this field. In 2019, 2 of the softball fields were resurfaced and used a product called Washington Ball Mix. The vendor for the city that has used for this material is a place called Stonecrest in Saginaw, Michigan. I met with project manager from Harvey Springs Excavating, who performed the grading finish of the softball fields in 2019. Harvey Springs Excavation uses a laser bulldozer for this type of work and is under contract with several local municipality ball fields. Harvey Springs Excavation supplied a quote of $5,925 for stripping off the existing diamond dust and place 3 inches of new material using the front end loader and the laser bulldozer. There's sufficient funds remaining in the unallocated capital outlay budget line item for parks and recreation for this purchase. If approved, this work can be completed this year before frost set in for the winter. It's my recommendation that the city commission award the purchase order contract for 132 tons of Washington Ball Mix from Stonecrest in the amount not to exceed $16,861. And award the installation of grade and finish to Harvey Springs Excavation in the amount not to exceed $5,925. Total project costs of this would be $22,786. I would also request that they authorize the manager to execute the necessary documents.
Any comment, questions from the public? Yes.
John Bush, we're using Harbor Springs excavating right now for this field. They have it's actually going to be a GPS unit that will grade the field up at River Park for the dirt. And it just makes so much sense because they're going to remove where the soil is growing back up into the field right now, and they're going to straighten out the edges and make it a lot easier, and the aesthetics is going to be a lot better than you can see on the pictures there. The aesthetics will be a lot better, and it will go easier for the Washington pavements to be put down.
Was this something that was approved in the history? Was this approved back at COVID? And then the order was proposed? And then June came up with the end to approve what we had done?
It was approved in 2019. We actually got the dirt, but at the time, the girls' field had little stones in it, and they were complaining that when they slid, they would rip their pants and get a blister, on their legs or whatnot. And we determined that the dirt needed to go there to fix that problem before the baseball field.
You can also note that in the picture, you can see a difference between the turf elevation and the dirt on the infield. There's a big gap there, so that was the need for the 3-inch fill. Typically, you wouldn't use that much, but it hasn't been worked on in quite some time, and the turf pipe has gotten quite high, which makes it a hazard actually.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the public?
I just would like to say, this supports families and kids in a really big way in town. Rotary Park is very heavily used. It's enjoyed by families in town and their visitors and people from other towns who come to participate. So if you can support the downtown social district, I certainly can't see why we can't support the Rotary Park baseball. That's my comment.
Anyone else? Okay, we can move to commission deliberation. Mike, you want to start?
Yeah, no, I have no problem with this. Again, Rotary Park, a big part of life here in Boyne City. A lot of family. And this, so I don't know. No issue with it whatsoever.
I just was curious, I guess, the diamond dusting that we approved the purchase, was it this summer?
It was in June.
Was this in a different field than?
No, it's the same field, same material that we know.
So this wasn't enough?
No, we didn't order it.
Didn't work, oh, okay. But the money was allocated, but.
Right. It wasn't ordered.
Is this better? Material than all different
That's what.
procedures?
Thanks.
Okay, that last confusion, we did address the diamond dust with the softball.
Correct.
Yeah. All we're doing here, we're leaving the grass infield, we're just bringing the outfield and the base paths up.
Yeah, see where the grass is growing into the field.
Yeah.
So they're gonna get they're gonna take the top 1-inch layer off. And we're gonna replace it with rather than
Where
and there's currently along the blade bricks for the better boxes and for the bigger box. So there's no longer a foothold in the better boxes, in the water meters, the pictures and stuff on hard surface that are falling in the fall.
Yeah,
I'm in full support. The only question I had is what Commissioner Lassiter hit on is just in regards to the Diamond Festival here this summer. That's been addressed.
Mike, the question I have, you did a review of an evaluation of the baseball field there. Do you do that with all the fields? Because a couple of years ago, the youth soccer program came to us, and those fields are very bad shape, and they're not able to host tournaments. Is that something that you can do on, do an evaluation of all of the fields there? To get...
Well, it looks like the softball fields back in 2019 were resurfaced, so they're in pretty good shape. And this one actually stood out in dire need more than the other ones. And having conversations with John, it was already approved in the spring, it wasn't done, so I want to make sure we can get it done this year yet and get it set up so it's ready to play in the spring. That would be ideal. Because some of my staff that work with materials said that it takes a while for it to set up and make it really playable. So the sooner we can get it done this year.
Yeah, I have no objection to that. I was just wondering if we're going to have a, annual evaluation of what the fields are and what they need, so we can, keep the ball up the stuff rather than waiting there.
I think absolutely we should look at that, and take a look at all the safety issues that go along with handrails, playing condition, do a needs analysis on all parts.
Okay, those are the only questions I have. Question 9. So I didn't take a motion on the baseball field material purchase recommendation.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation from Director of Public Works, Michael LeMay, to approve a purchase order contract for 132 tons of Washington ball mix from Stone Quest of Saginaw, Michigan, in the amount not to exceed $16,861, and to award installation, grade, and finish to Harbor Springs excavation amount not to exceed $5,925 for a total project cost of $22,786. And authorize the city manager to execute the necessary documents.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Jessica, roll call please.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Sarchet.
Aye.
Marcus.
Aye.
Rudy.
Aye.
Steve Cameron.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We move now to Police Academy Fellowship, item D in the business. Kevin?
Thanks, Mayor. Well, I'm gonna back up for a minute, take you back to when I got hired. Just so we can go on a little bit of backstory on how applying and getting a police job has changed over the past several years. When I applied back in '99, got hired here, it wasn't unusual to see 100 to 200 applicants for each job that's out there. When we went to the academy, it was very rare to see a sponsored group. Everybody paid their own way, and that's the way it was. That has started to swing. Applications are definitely down. Since Officer Novak left us in, I believe it was January, we have, to this point, we have 14 applications. So in the past 9 months, we received 14 applications. 3 of those came in the last 2 weeks. So as you can tell, it's a little bit different from the way it used to be. I've worked with Mike Kane, going through the last several hires. We've changed how we went and looked for people. It used to be you would put out that you're hiring and your opening is open for 2 weeks. You get all your applications in, you find the best 5 guys or girls. You interview them, and then you take the best one. That went to, we started calling the academies. I would go visit the academies and ask the director, who's the best person you've got left over that doesn't have a job yet. That's how we ended up with Officer Hoff. He was a great addition. But had we not gone to the academy and hired him while he was in the academy, we wouldn't have gotten him with it. We tried those programs. Like I said, we put out that we're hiring. We ended up with 14 applications in 9 months. Called the academies. They might have one or two cadets that don't have jobs yet. And out of those, none of them have applied. So it leaves us where we're at now. And I'll skip the first one. As we've discussed in the past, the time has been approaching to look at sponsoring cadets through the academy. That time has definitely come. We've had a few inquiries in this area, and I think it's time to explore that option. The state of Michigan just announced a $30 million public safety academy assistance program. This program is first come, first served. And it's slated to end in September 2026, or until the money is gone, whichever happens first. Each department is allowed to receive up to 25 scholarships to cover over the course of the program. The program will pay $4,000 for recruits for wages and benefits while attending the academy, and $20,000 per recruit for academy costs. I met with Northern Chiefs today up in Mackinac City, and we were all confused by this because it doesn't cover the cost of wages, and the academy doesn't cost $1,000. They met with the people that sponsored this, and they admitted they were kind of pushing it through a little bit fast. They didn't get their numbers right, but it is what it is, so that's the numbers we have. The catch I can see in this program is that the cadet must be hired by an agency prior to applying for the program. I've spoken with Laura Diane about this. She said it would be an option to hire a cadet contingent upon receiving the money from the state. So what we would be able to do is we go through our usual process. We'd find cadets or prospective cadets that fit the bill for what we need, offer them the job, contingent upon applying the academy and getting them money. I understand that our financial exposure could be greater than normal during this process. Tuition for, and I use Kirkland Police Academy because they're the closest academy, it's where I went through, so they're obviously better than everything else. Tuition for out of area is $11,432. There's miscellaneous expenses of $500 for tests, academy uniforms. I don't know what the cost is going to be there. I threw $1,500 in there, but that's going to be covered by the grant as well. Wages. On their website, it says it's a 6-month program. I don't remember it being that long. So I used those numbers at 40 hours a week, $15 per hour. That comes out to $15,600 for a total expense of the academy would be $29,032. The only thing that would not be covered by that program would be $11,600. That would be the wages portion. That program does mandate that you pay minimum wage to be cadet while they're in the academy. Why I went with $15 is we're looking at going around town and finding somebody that is working at a bank or someplace and saying, hey, we'd like to change jobs. So you have to leave what you're doing, go to school. They still have to pay for a place to stay wherever they're going to school at. They have to pay for food, and they have to still have the ability to pay for their home and everything. With the vacancy left by Officer Novak the past year, and Officer Brady's current vacancy, I believe we can still sponsor 2 cadets through the academy and stay within our current budget. From their wages and benefits, we'd be paying less the cadet, so like I said, I think we can stay in there. Laura Diane has written a contract for sponsoring cadets through the academy. She has mentioned some departments have an agreement with the cadet that they will repay tuition as well as other expenses if they leave the employment before the set number of years. She's also informed me that no unions challenge this. However, it is against the federal FLSA requirements. Therefore, we will not be seeking for any repayment of tuition should somebody leave after we put them through the academy. Usually I can bring items to you with a solid number and expense. The past few years have shown that to be trying at times, and this is no exception. I don't see the money running out soon, but I do see interested people being scooped up because in meeting with about 15 other chiefs today, we were all looking at this thinking there's a solution to our problem. So we're going to start looking for the same people. I see the academies being filled up. We're seeing the potential to make more money by raising their tuition. Since tuition is only $11,000, the state's gonna pay $20,000. If I ran the academy, I'm not raising the rates. This is why I can only present the best numbers I have at this moment, but I know prolonging this manner will only set us back further in the search for good qualified officers. So therefore, it's my recommendation that the city commission approve the city manager Michael Kane to direct the chief of police to pursue hiring the vacant police officer positions by using the public safety academy assistance program.
Any comment or questions from the public?
Hi, Sandy Pritchard, 526 East Lincoln. You had 14 applicants and none of them met muster. And do you state the wage that you're offering in your ads? When does that come out?
So that comes out when they call and when we contact them for an interview. I'll go back to when I got hired. I remember the day Randy Howard hired me. I called my mom, said, I got a job. She says, what do you make? I don't know. She says, what are your benefits? I don't know. She says, you took a job and you don't know what your benefits are. I was one of probably 150, 175 people. I didn't care. I was working at once at the time at nice. These people now, if they apply, they call you. I have to have a sheet next to my computer, and they say, well, what's your wage? How long do I top out? What's your retirement? What's your benefits? I have to have a sheet there. That's all it, and I send it to them. So every single person that we interviewed 3, one was a no-show, the other 2 called college. So they know that.
I just was curious if we're uncompetitive. And then related to that, because this is a good option where you can go. What are the powers of these folks while they're going through their training? Okay, and would it make sense? And to do a retention bonus in the sense that after they graduate, to stay, because you're not going to try and go get the money back. After they graduate, to incentivize them sticking around, because you just got them paying to make somebody police officer. So maybe 18 months, 2 years, throw, $5 grand at them, or kind of something interesting.
Those are options, but then we also have to look at those options with the options that are working here
For sure.
and then not working.
I don't know, how this jeopardizes your current wage structure. You take a look at that. Potential bonuses sometimes are very useful. Because we're gonna be tighter, corporate owners, So I got.
Anyone else?
I'm in full support of John Bush. I'm full support of it. I think that's the route that a lot of people are doing. My department has sponsored, I think, 5 or 6 in the last year. However, I've asked the commission, you gotta look at your retirement. The people are leaving because they're finding partners and better pay than Northern Michigan and what we get up here. I think that's a big thing. I think Chief State would say that I would too. We came in at the right time. We have a retirement that we still have pensions, and I know a lot of departments got rid of pensions and went to a hybrid. And the guys are looking at it saying, well, I got $75,000 that saved in 15 years. Where's that gonna get me? If I stay here another 15 years, because I think we've got to look at the pension system to make it more willing to stay longer. So big thing.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Are you doing this in Jordan?
Kevin and I have talked, we just have an opening right now, and I just hope that it's all into that. We're in a little different boat. My guys don't make my money as Kevin's guys do. But we have a defined benefit retirement. We've been on the officer. So it evens out, I guess. So we can see.
You mentioned that the academies are filling up quickly. Is that a good sign? Are young people choosing to?
No,
No?
I. By saying that, that's one of the things I can see happening through this is with this flood of money. With all the departments going and saying, hey, I can now sponsor people. If we prolong this and we wait longer. I know Kirkland usually runs about 20 cadets. Doesn't take long to fill up. So if I'm looking at putting on 2, now they're down to 18. That's not many departments. So that's what my fear is, that we wait longer and keep waiting for more applicants that have already gone through the academy, that by the time we pull the trigger on that, they'll be full and we'll have to wait in this session.
So there's 300 some entities across the state that are hiring, right?
Correct. Last time I counted, 320. And that's with multiple, so like Grand Traverse was hiring 8, that only counts as 1, so it's 1 part.
You know every kid in high school, you would Clyde and George know everybody in Northern Michigan. Is there a recruiting process? Is there a word of mouth? Is there any desire of young people?
There is, I had one of our last year recruits, when he saw this come out, he graduated in Boyne City last year. He came and asked what he thought about putting him through, if we got this through. As I explained to him, age-wise, is extremely hard, because when he graduates, he'll be 19 years old. He'll be about 10 seconds older than half the kids in high school. And it would be really hard to go handle a complaint on someone that's still in high school that you went to school with, and now you have to explain to their parents the way things work. We've hired 1 or 2 people that have gone through the 5th year program for law enforcement. They came out of it 19 or 20 years old. It's not a job that you get into that early and be successful at. So taking a recent high school graduate is probably not a good option. That's why usually, if you're not sponsored, you have to have an associate's degree. It gives you a couple more years of life experience, a little bit more under your belt, and then when you graduate, you're usually around 21, 22 mark. After you go through the academy. With being sponsored, you don't have to have an associate, so that makes it able to go to somebody in town that has a career that's ready for a change, and somebody that maybe is a little bit older, mid-20s, early 30s, something like that.
Thanks for educating us on full support.
I'm in full support. During our budget meeting, this is something that I see as being a very big benefit for you guys, for the department, with having the state funding there now. So I'm in full support, especially with potentially having a social district. You're going to need to fill those positions. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no issue with it. My question was gonna be, to you, Chief, was, so you talked about, Laura didn't, writing the, contract that, some of them, pay back the expenses. Why would we want to write something like that? I mean, other than I understand that, if it was challenged, you can't hold up. I guess you don't have to lead with that and say, hey, we're gonna put this restriction on. I know, let me let you know this, if you get an attorney, we lose anyhow. I mean, you can.
Yep, good question. Let me get to the page here so I can pull it. So part of this application in here,
Is it because you're grabbing the state funding? Is that where the FLSA thing kicks in?
yeah, that's part of it, and there's somewhere in here where it says that you will not be asking for repayment of anything if they leave, and they have to sign that. So in essence, what you would be doing is you'd be asking your future police officer, the first thing they do for you to lie by signing a document.
Yeah. Let me piggyback on that. understanding that you can't do it that way and not asking for it to be repaid. And then, I support you in however this has to be done. But I guess my only issue is that, you pick one or two guys and then you get them all the way through the process. And then after day two, Sheboygan calls or George calls or, someone else calls and they go, I mean, I'm sorry, I'll see you later and I'm gonna leave. And so
That's what our last two officers did.
yeah, no, I got it. We talked, and so I guess, but those were under slightly different circumstances. If they came to you on their own, here, you're going and garnering somebody and then, offering to pay for the school need and or help them with it and everything like that. And we're putting them through it. I mean, is there no way that you can, say, look, you got here these 2 years, whatever.
Just like I said, and I found a spot here under eligibility criteria. It says, as with all employee recruits per statute in Michigan administrative rules, individuals shall not be required or allowed to repay the employing agency for any cost related to intensive academy. So they have that built in, and that's something that we both have to sign when they sign up for the academy.
But that's not repaying. I'm not asking for, I'm asking for
But what happens if they don't stay? What are we looking at? So they sign something that says, yeah, I'll stay for 2 years, and then they don't.
then you're repaying.
You can't.
I get it.
Like I said,
Well,
there's places out there to do it.
I'll bet there's legalese in there somewhere that some lawyer could write a clause that said, well, repayment is different than employment.
I'm sure they could, but that's not the way I want to start out.
No, I'm not trying to get you to do that. I'm just saying. Okay, I don't need to keep talking. I support what you want to do. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense if it can't be some.
Mr. Boyd does.
We have a lot of good things in our department. You guys just did their contract. Our wages are right up there, probably, I would say we're probably some of the top in the area for our department size. There's other things we can work on to keep people here as well.
Okay, well, if you slice the state in half, at least we're over in the southern half who wants to defund the police half the time, so we don't want to forget. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think I can speak to Marty's, even when I got sponsored through DPE, Detroit Police Department, they made us sign a 3-year contract that would stay there. And I would bet over half the guys left within 5 months of the academy. Because they know that it's a statute in the state of Michigan that they can't keep you and they can't make you pay that. I think the biggest thing is the benefits is where you're gonna regain, when you got Charles County that still has full pension at 3% multiplier inside with Boyne City sitting here, they're gonna steal everybody and anybody all the time.
Yeah, I support your recommendation, your better, so I didn't think the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of the police chief, Kevin Spade, to approve the city manager to direct the chief of police to pursue the hiring of a vacant police officer position by using the public safety academy assistance program. You want 2, right? Make that 2 police officers.
If you just made that plural, if I end up needing
That officer,
then I can use it as needed until the point runs out.
Is there a second? Second that. Okay. Any further discussion? Jessica?
Am I making a change to the motion? With the 2 people?
No. Yes, officer.
Officers. The vacant police, all of one.
Because you got 2 positions over there. Yeah.
So, Nemecheck.
Aye.
Johnson. Moody. Deacon. Patrick.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Okay. Now on to something a little bit lighter. For some time now, our department's been looking at purchasing a digital speed trailer. And I'm sure you've seen in neighboring communities as well as in our own a few times, we borrow the counties. A digital speed trailer is a global trailer that's placed on the side of the road and will show the speed of passing cars. Depending on the trailer type, some record traffic data and have flashing red and blue lights as well as record data. For the past few years, I've looked at different trailers that we've used in our area, reached out to several companies that sell trailers. And I've chosen all traffic solutions out of all the companies I've been in contact with. There are companies out of Pennsylvania, and trailers are made in the USA. They were also the most responsive by far. There are companies that have not responded with quotes, and one that I haven't heard of. The trailer I'm looking to purchase is a Speed Alert 24 radar message sign. It is a multi-use trailer. It can be digital speed out, showing drivers the speed of traveling, and it can also be used as a messaging sign. When used as a messaging board, we can put whatever message on we need to. It would be great for events, scroll streets, One Thunder, any message you want to type on it. Construction and other public notices that receive that. I've attached a brochure with information on it for you to review. There's some pictures on there. The sign comes with a 3-year warranty, solar panels, red and blue warning lights, as well as remote access capabilities. That remote access capabilities comes with the first year. There's part of the code in there where there's an access to that. After that, I will not pay the yearly fee for remote access. I don't see why I would need to pay that just to be able to remote access on my phone. By far, the most complaints I received from chiefs of police are speed and traffic complaints from the general public. Many times these are opinion based with no clear way of knowing somebody's true speed. We have a speed sensor box we place out that records speeds without anybody knowing it. And it's a small black case that we put on a pole. That's given us some very useful information to use on these complaints. But I would like to add the digital speed trailer to elevate our response to these citizen concerns. The speed trailer along with our current speed sensor box would be greatly accomplished. I have budgeted money in this year's budget for the purchase. So BC Pizza has held a fundraiser for our department the past 2 years, and they have raised a total of $8,300 between the 2 fundraisers. The money that's been collected has been collected and has been deposited in the general fund. So my recommendation is that the city commission approve Michael Kane, city manager, or his designee, to purchase a Speed Alert 24 radar message sign from All Traffic Solutions for an amount not to exceed $17,920.
Any comment or questions from the public?
Hey, I've been waiting all night for this. This is Doug Mack. Thank you so much for doing the research. I really appreciate you spending the time and investigating this. As you know, I've approached you directly with my concerns. On Charlevoix Street, you have brought officers out there. The black box was installed on a post, and despite my continued request as to what the results were, it seems that there were technical issues with that box or the data wasn't wanting to be provided. I don't know which. So in either case, the one question I have about what it is that you're purchasing is what is the technology that it is using for radar, what band specifically, and are there any concerns of that band being, I don't know, eliminated in the future? Or is that something that can be addressed and used long-term? And the second question, again, back to the city as a whole, is what can we do about Pleasant Valley and Charlevoix Street, in particular, the 2 exit and entrances to the city that are very primary in nature and have really posed concerns for a lot of citizens, including myself. I'm complete.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I do not know what band they use. I know the speed sign trailers have been around for quite some time. And with the radars that we use, I don't know if they've not used or disbanded a band that we've been using. I can ask on that when we get it, but I don't see that being an issue.
Okay, I'm not sure I understand the question.
The band, the radar, yeah. So when you have a radar, they're different, they're called bands, they have K, KA, and something else, that's the frequency that it uses. And there's different bands you can use. I don't remember what our bands are. But the question is, are they gonna, I believe what his questions are they gonna discontinue using whatever band is on this trailer?
Yeah, so for example, X band is really old technology, and has been around for a very long time. It's also very wide band, whereas a KA band is tighter and more recent technology as well as laser, which requires a direct shot, so to speak. So, my concern for the city would just be ensuring that we're purchasing something that is going to be around technologically speaking and available for the long term. And of course, still addressing the issues on Charlevoix and Pleasant Valley.
Yeah, I'm not sure we'll solve that tonight, but it's certainly being heard. Kevin, I have a question. Can you use this on state highways, state roads, or something that's not a local road? So you could do it on the state street, you could do it on those.
As far as I know, yes.
Any other questions from the public?
Yes, I'm totally in support of this.
Okay, thank you.
I'm in full support. Again, it's another topic that we all went over during the budget sessions, and hopefully it helps solve some speed.
I have no concern with your request, Kevin, although I will respectfully disagree. I mean, I think you guys do a great job. I think the black boxes do, get you some information and everything. We just had a conversation about how hard it is for you to get police officers. I would personally rather take $17,000 and spend it somewhere else in the department, trying to do something like that, other than listen to a few Mrs. Kravitz and saying, I'd like you to spend $17,000 to leave something speedy by my place, in which case, most of the time, correct me if I'm wrong, if that's not the case. A lot of times, they're not, somebody thinks they're going 45, 50 miles an hour, and it's not even registering 30, my question to your point was that we've shared these in the past. I would like, if nothing else, I would like to at least table it and say, can we look at sharing with George and the county and maybe doing a collaborative thing where it doesn't cost you all so much money that, and again, having funds left over for, something else. And to the effect that it doesn't even get the Mrs. Kravitz the answer that she wants, does it really give you the result that Mrs. Kravitz thinks you're gonna get with this machine?
Right. So the county I know has at least 2 of these. We have had it in the past. They are very hard to get because they have all the places in the county where they want to see them. They have allowed us to use them on occasion. It would be nice to have our own. The other side of that is for like Charlevoix Street, Pleasant Ave. I can put this out there for 2 weeks and it's like having another police car there. My kids that drive tell me, Dad, I hate that silence in advance because I'm coming through there and all of a sudden they're coming out, thankfully. Because I see the red and blues and I think they get pulled over. That's what they're for. So it does make people aware and it will slow some people down. Some people aren't going to care. But I think it will help us out being an additional thing out there to remind people how fast they're going with that speed limit actually is. And if you can set it up in the right people's front yard, they can watch them all day long and see how fast the cars are not going.
So you don't believe that we could at least table this for a month and talk to the county and talk to George and say, hey, okay, maybe we can collaboratively buy another one. Do you have one?
Can we rent it?
We borrow yours.
Can we borrow?
Every
How often is yours out?
It's all. It is, I can tell you, it is another level tool, because you're exactly right. It's amazing to hear from people. Oh, my street, they want to know, maybe that's all. And to be able to, respond to that, those complaints, is huge. People really appreciate that. And, the other thing is, you can show them the data. You can have the data show, here's the average speed, here's, it's a 35 zone, the average speed is 36. In certain times of day, which is valuable to us, we can look at this at certain times of day, the speed listed, after work or 2 in the morning. And then, we'll show you the maximum speed, the minimum speed. It's an incredible tool. Be able to show somebody like, here's where the problems are, or this isn't a problem.
Right. And the other thing that this does, that the counties and the shores doesn't do is the message board part of it. If Mike needs to close the road down and we can put it up there, we'll close, take whatever road we detour. You can type it or whatever we want.
Baby Ironton berries out. One of my fault.
Yeah. Should it be more of a multi-use?
That's kind of.
And normally we wouldn't go to citizen comment after we had it, but so don't, no, like you're fine, John, don't get it.
I know, and I just, because I know I've done it for a while with these guys, and I think the speed trailer is a great use because it opens up manpower for the guys working the road too. You're not sitting in a patrol car out there, I don't know how many hours I've sat on roads because of speeding complaints and mark things down 30, and there's not a problem there. And these just document that, so the chiefs can go back to the people calling and saying, this is what happened. That's all.
Okay, yeah, I support it. It's been a long time coming. So one question I have is it possible to put it on the post office as a curve, people move around there? Or is that the state highway, you can't do that?
I believe I can put them on the state highway, but I don't know that you would get anything on that curve. Generally trying to put them on straightaways. If we can put it up further before you get to the curve.
The other thing I was wondering, there was one that worked late this summer that I thought was very effective. Can you know what information that provided to the county sheriff department or how it worked or anything?
I haven't seen the printouts of it, I don't know what it showed.
That was really effective. Okay, well, I'm the recommendation to choose state, so I can make a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation from Chief Spade to approve the city manager or his designee to purchase a speed trap alert 24J radar message sign from All Traffic Solutions for an amount not to exceed $17,920.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right. Any further discussion? Jessica? Aye.
Moody.
Hey.
Cameron.
Aye.
Lassiter.
Aye.
Demchak.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin. Moving on to reading. Agreement with Lake Charlotte and Jordan Valley, Indiana, authority for student clinical ride along. Where they here?
I know, right here.
Where were you?
Stuck it out, side of everybody. Wait. All right, so I've read the EMS director. These are contracts that I brought to board. I think the Jordan Valleys, by the way. They are mirror images. They're the exact same contracts. One just says Lake Charlevoix, the other says Jordan Valley. Much like Chief State, I face the same challenges in a department where I need a minimum of 13 medics. I have 8. So this is the easy way to find new employees.
When I was a paramedic student, I rode with more than a dozen different departments. And at the end of my student ride-alongs, I had more than a dozen job offers. You bring them in, you make them feel comfortable, and you can pick who you want. And so with these contracts, they're both going to individually start running classes separately. And they've asked that, can their students come right here? And we have to have these contracts in order to do that. It takes away our liability. I can tell you, when I signed up to be a student, I did not realize that I had to carry my own insurance. I had to sign my life away. And so these are to protect us as the clinical bodies. I recently completed the state of Michigan instructor coordinator course. I still have to test out, but I learned that the educating bodies carry most of the liability, if not all.
Great.
Do you guys have any questions?
Let's ask the public first. Any questions? Okay.
I just would like to say that I have been very pleased with our ambulance department, and I know it's really hard to keep it staffed. Yes. And I've had more personal experience for my mother, my husband, and myself than I would like, but each time it's been good. So, I think that this is something that will help you keep your department manned to the degree it should be, probably something that we'll get to.
Thank you. Anyone else? Move to the board, Tim, you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm in full support. Just personal kudos to you. Obviously, when this board recently got your resume and everything, and the futuristic goals and initiatives you highlighted there, I think this is a great thing. That highlights great leadership. So kudos to you. Thanks.
Yeah, I know how to do well. I mean, I understand. You're in the same boat that chief is, so I get it.
Not delivering anything. Support, words also. Yeah, how are things going, Bridget? Going
They're
well?
going well. Yes, we have been exceptionally busy. That mutual aid contract has definitely come into play. Yesterday, Charlevoix, again, they needed our help. I went over there in the Apple Card, very impressed with my team. We're trying to work together to help others go to school. I have some in paramedic school and I have 2 in nursing school. And so I'm very lucky to be in the community. You can see out of the dozens of job offers where I ended up. In this job, it is not always about money. It is about feeling comfortable and wanting to be somewhere. I have been here 7 years. And we have had one student that was a COVID situation, so I would really like to open our doors and stop being the best kept secret. We need to be more public.
Well, I'm for support the recommendation, so I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation from PMS Director Greg Wilson to authorize the city manager to sign the agreement with the Charlotte and joined by PMS authorities.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. If we have a second, is there any other discussion? Jessica?
Moody.
Aye.
Medium.
Aye.
After.
Aye.
Nemecheck.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Moving on to get it order.
Yeah, can we figure this chamber out? This is, I mean, it's like 1,000 degrees in here. I mean, it's really getting ridiculous. I'm trying to sit here. Either that, or we get some big ass fans in there. Take care of it that way. And the other thing is, I thought we were going to talk again about our road end a little bit and our surveys and stuff. Thought that was going to be getting on the agenda. Obviously, I'd like to see that.
You have a one kid go on.
I got it. Well, that was pretty simple. And we're talking about protecting, our normal residential, people. I think it's a bit. All right.
Announcements, the next regular city commission meeting is scheduled for October 25th, 2024 at noon. In Boyne City, Crystal, from 5 p.m. until 8 p.m. on Monday, October
October 31st. With that, I think we need to work with the
I'll make a motion as that.
second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, thank you, everyone. Also, we talk about this.